reporting today's numbers. There are 68,487,109 child laborers under the age of 14.
So you can tell, can you?
Whoa!
Our intrepid reporters can confirm firsthand that the gear maker is currently seated in the president's car. Correct. It seems that the most heinous criminal in history, commonly known as that man, may have surrendered himself into...
We haven't been able to get a clear view of the situation. Witnesses are reporting that he was speaking with the
mastermind behind
Now, there's a
innumerable
possibility
crimes
that
during
this
the
may be a
Crusade.
copycat.
The monikers that man and the gearmaker should be familiar to anyone who's ever opened a history textbook. Some speculate that he may be involved with the United States excluded demilitarization of
Citizens have started to gather in protest, resulting in confusion.
We say
Unclear
it's the spread of
club
unfounded
incident.
speculation. As of now, we don't have any
He's
confirmation.
a man of many names, but perhaps we should call him by the one most familiar to us. The Devil.
Order in the courthouse! Attention everyone! Gavel gavel! We are here today to look upon the crimes of the greatest criminal ever known to man, who has been wreaking havoc for the past 25 years in gaming history, and 217 years within lore. The greatest criminal we've ever known, Asuka R. Kreutz. The defendant here is sitting, very guilty, I would add. The creator of the gears. Guilty gear, perhaps. And I've gathered 4 defendants, jurors. I actually don't know the court system all that well. Jurors today that know a lot about the defendant, that can probably talk about him, and we will judge today is the worthiness of his sins and who he is as a person. First up, we've got Soup. Say hello, Soup.
Hello, I'm Soup. He, him, I like drawing and video games and... Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Next up, we have Soph.
Hello. My name's Soph. My pronouns are they and them. I love fighting games of all variety and making music.
Oh, really? You make, what kind of music do you make?
Mostly hip-hop, but with a nice little rock influence, you know, Guilty Gear on my shoulders forever and always.
Nice.
Oh, that's so cool, though.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Kit. Say hello, Kit.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I don't know, actually. I'm kind of tired, actually.
Same here.
We're working.
Yeah, most
into
people just call me Kit. Maybe you've seen me floating around making mods. Some very interesting
really? What mods have you
mod.
made?
Oh, I've seen your mods, alright.
Wait, are you the femboy Asuka person?
Oh my god.
Wait, are you?
Oh my god,
This is your
That
legacy.
part is so real. Holy shit.
Respect.
For femboy crimes.
So you've seen the defendant in various forms of dress. You're fucking awesome, though. You have very popular mods, and I like them a lot. And last but not least, we have Nep. Say hi, Nep.
Hi, I'm Neb, she, her. I play games, I like Asuka, he's very cool, and like my dream fighting game character, that's all.
And Nep is coming back from the ABBA episode, so very cool stuff.
Second time here, hi.
I am your head juror, or grand juror, I don't know. I didn't play enough Ace Attorney to figure out the name of that, but I'm Dean. And I'm here with my assistant juror, maybe clerk or clergy or something like that. I think clergy's a different thing. Jay. Hi, Jay.
Hello, it's me, Jay.
And now, someone fight me, so we can talk about Asuka.
Someone
Who's stepping up to the plate first?
I have never played this man before in my life. He is the most difficult character in the game. And I just saw a red ping mark, meaning that someone's internet is bad, but that's okay. This is for casual fights anyways.
It'll be fine, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
So, the big question, when you saw Asuka on the character roster, or you were reading through the lore, what was it that initially got you interested in him? Anyone can start.
He has lots of resource management, and I really like it, and I just like doing silly spells. Asuka's law's really interesting. He has loads, but we'll get into that probably over the course of how long this is.
He's connected to every single character, so you know it's.
If I got into it now, I think we'd be here all the time.
Asuka certainly has a lot going on.
Yeah. Whether it's his allies, you know, Raven, Ino, even Anji now, whether it's like his closest friends and, I don't know, possibly lovers, Sol and Arya. Fuck! Oh my god!
You're telling me that Asuka put a seed of the form of corruption?
Kinda gay, I'm just saying, you know?
And Sol Backguy, that's kind of fruity.
You're telling
It's a little fruity.
You're telling me this man put his gloried seed in another man? Sounds really fucking fruity.
There's something going on there.
So in terms of gameplay, I think Asuka's really interesting because everyone had the same reaction to him where it's like, what the fuck is happening on screen?
Yeah.
He just has so many systems going on. I think he's immediately eye-catching in that regard.
Absolutely. I remember I just looked at his moveset because even though I'm not a fighting game player, I wanted to like show my friends, and immediately I was like, okay, this is not right. There's something going on here. I don't think that's normal. Normal.
I think the moment that the starter guide came out and we saw it was like 7 minutes long, I think everyone kind of knew that something was up here. And then you see the whole diagram they have of all the spells.
I don't know if he has the longest starter guide, but it surely feels like it. I don't know if he has the longest, because I know for the Johnny one, the guy they have doing the voices, like, he took his sweet-ass time to explain Mistfinder in 6 different ways.
Oh, definitely. They said the same thing like 4 times.
You can activate it at this range.
The moment I saw Asuka's, like, starter, like, trailer, I just fell in love. He is, like, my dream character. Just resources and magic and chaos.
I don't play BlazBlue at all, but I saw some people comparing him to Nine the Phantom in that one. Probably because of
his like
rock.
overhead.
Does his icicle thing, is that a DP or is that just
it's universal, it's just a really bad one.
It's really bad.
What's bad about it? Just slow?
It's just kind of slow.
And then the startup of it is really bad. It can be cancelled into other spells, so like it's a pure DP. You use it to get out of bad situations, and if you fuck up, you get exploited by Fafnir.
Now, can I just say real quick, I don't think I've performed a single spell in this game yet.
I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. I think this is funny as hell.
Can you tell I name him?
It's a little antithetical.
Can you tell I don't have a life?
No, Asuka definitely has a life, so...
Oh yeah, I'm just like Asuka. I have a life, it's research.
I was gonna say, I'm on a podcast now, I'm really like Asuka.
He's just like me!
He's like my hero, I look up to him.
Outside of it being really funny that he has a podcast, I just think that's what a unique way to end a character's story. The main villain of your entire franchise ends the story by making a podcast. He is sponsored by Spotify and Audible, and like every other thing I can't think of. Squarespace.
I'm just like Asuka. I'm on a podcast. I'm autistic. I'm in love with Soul Bad Guy.
So true. So true, Bestie. Real. It's all.
Oh god, what's the input to get back mana? Is it down down?
It's down, and then I usually do punch or kick.
Punch, kick, or slash.
No, I normally do slash or kick. Yeah.
I know when I watch Gobo, he always goes for the
red
health
one,
green one, but
health is really good if you're at advantage, because then you can keep advantage for longer.
It's also just pretty good consistently, because like if you get caught out and you have no mana, the health that you would trade is not worth the mana that you would get back, if that makes sense.
Oh my fucking god.
Genuinely?
Oh no, you landed 5D on me! Fuck! Jay, you were gonna say?
Yeah, genuinely to the point of what people have been saying, though, honestly, I think the main thing that drew me towards Asuka, just at the outset, was the mystique of having a character who's so important in your franchise only being known as that man, and having these, like, inconceivable goals and motivations that are actually all for the best for everyone that he cares about, and he's really nice. He's just a bit of a weirdo. Like, I really looked at that, and I thought, he just like me for real. Like, no bullshit. And with regards to his portrayal in Strive and how his gameplay functions, it's really antithetical to me as a fighting game player who's really casual and ass at most games that I play. But I really am drawn to those overcomplicated, ridiculous like characters or kits in the games that I play. So I love how they were able to achieve that sort of unity between Asuka's character and his gameplay here by overwhelming you with options with all the spell cards and the different deck selections, and you having to manage that to play him most optimally. But just like really doing a great job of putting you in his shoes when you're playing the game and being like, you're confronted with all of this knowledge and it's up to you to straighten things out. Like that's pretty sick.
Yeah, that is very cool. I think for me, what first drew me to Asuka is, so for me, I started with Strive, like as far as the story goes, I started with Strive, so I wasn't entirely sure what was going on. But I was like, okay, this guy, there's something going on with him. And then I ended up watching Exard, and then everything fell into place, and I was like, oh, okay, I love him, okay. Just seeing, like, he's like you said, he's like probably one of the most important characters to the entire story, and I think that the role he plays in that story is interesting, but like also, it's not just that, like how he is as a person, like how his actions are informed by who he is, and like vice versa, who he is, how that informs his action is informed by his actions, especially the consequences of them. I think that's super interesting, and like I think he's a character that really ties in super nicely to the greater like themes and topics of the Guilty Gear series, which is, in my opinion, a really great thing for a character so important to be able to do.
Yeah. I feel like he has a little bit of that.
Never before have I seen a character that just feels completely loaded with stuff going on.
Yeah.
Whether that's in gameplay, whether that's in lore, whether that's in his history, whether that's in how he speaks and how he acts and presents in his dialogue. I feel like there's just always more to him going on, which is really, really incredible.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that he does and says earlier in the series as well, which like portrays him as a villain, is usually down to miscommunication as well. Like he's shown to have really bad communication skills. Like, when he says that he wants to kill Saul Bad Guy, he means that he wants to return his friend, Frederick.
Yeah!
Yes.
Yeah, I really want to talk about that! It is such a unique villain motivation, that the main problem that causes every single bad event in the entire series isn't that he has bad intentions, it's that he cannot communicate. He fundamentally cannot speak to another person correctly, and that causes every misunderstanding that happens afterwards, and causes 25 years of gameplay and 200, 300, whatever years of suffering for every single character, because a college kid can't speak. He goes, that's him! That's all because he can't fucking speak! It's so cool! I've never heard of a character having that character flaw before, and I think that's a really realistic character flaw.
Yeah, and like, I'd say that as a character, like, despite the fact that he plays an antagonistic role for the majority of the series, his motivations entirely are completely, like, within good intent. Like, he never wanted any of the bad things to happen. It was just up to him being bad at communication and horrific circumstances. Everything went wrong that could have in the worst way possible.
And maybe this is me getting a bit ahead of myself, but I will say, this is why I love the idea of clear numbers so much, because it's literally him being like, I can't give you my opinion anymore. Every time I've tried, it's gotten out of control and I've blown up. I've created the worst out of what could have been better. So instead of being like, okay, here's my Joe Rogan podcast with my host, Soul Bad Guy, he's like, this is how many child laborers are there. This is what is going on Earth. Here's the goodness that I could give out of the Tome of Origin for you without telling you what to do at this point. Because every time I do it, justice comes back or something.
Yeah, he realized that whenever he tries to help, he always manages to mess up somehow. So instead, he creates the podcast in order to let other people do what they can.
Can one of you guys fight so I can spectate?
Oh yeah, of course.
Something I've seen is that some people seem to consider him starting the podcast and going to the moon as like him running away from his problems, and personally I very much disagree with that because
Yeah, I have seen that exact argument so many times online, where it's like, Asuka is a failure of a villain because all he does is cause problems and run away. He runs away constantly, and then the ending, the final denouement to his character arc is that he runs away to the moon and he sits there and his little hoity-toity ass speaking numbers, which I think is so disrespectful to the care that goes into this character and the very human aspects of him. Like, he is someone that has fundamentally always tried to make things better. He learned the secrets of the world of the Tome of Origin that his master gave him and tried to fix everyone's problems. He created magic cells so that people wouldn't age and wouldn't get illnesses and wouldn't get sick anymore. And guess what happened? Oh, yeah, some people got immortal and we gave it to animals and it was used for militaristic purposes and now everyone's killing each other. I made a cube so I can study and watch the world in the backyard. Oh, well now forces beyond my recognition are trying to take it over and destroy the world. I want to protect the world, so I'm gonna join this this military project so it can't be used in the wrong hands. Oh, well, it just got turned around and blown, and now I'm responsible for the deaths of every single person in Japan. Every time he has a greater understanding of something and says, I want to fix this because I know what will happen if I don't get involved, it gets worse because you can't fundamentally change the world like that.
Yeah.
You can't force your hands and say, I'm going to change the world because I know what's best. That is not how the world works. There's always going to be greater agendas and things like that.
Yeah, and things that conflict and things that just don't work for whatever reason, if there even is a reason. Sometimes things just don't work out and we're not really sure why. I do really dislike the idea that some people have of him being cowardly, because he really isn't. To me, he definitely seems like a guy who's in his arcade mode. How would you say the clone's name? I just say R because
I normally say Asuka R Kreutz.
Kreutz, yeah, that's what I say.
Yeah, Kreutz, he specifically makes the point that the world has always been an uncomfortable place for him. So...
Oh my god.
Yeah, I have a lot of feelings about that line, which...
As you say that line, I remember how exactly he delivers it by saying, and just the amount of emotion, and I feel like there's tears in his eyes that he's not even showing. I bet if I looked at his face, he wouldn't even be crying, but I know he feels like crying. And I get extremely emotional from raw things like that, where it's this is me speaking as honestly as I can with all layers removed, that I'm so uncomfortable. The world has made me feel unhappy. I have all the answers, but nothing changes. And I think that's something that so many people can relate to, where it's things like global warming.
Yes.
We know the exact problems, but are we gonna stop mega corporations ourselves? No, it feels hopeless, and it's what are you going to do about that?
Yeah, it's it's that, and then also his inability to communicate. It's the way I think of it is I feel for a majority of his life he's felt he doesn't really know his exact place in the world because it was just not suited for him, and why he could not define. But he wants to make the world a better place, and he lives his life, he says something in Strive about constantly just adapting to the things around him and not making a choice for himself. And that makes sense to me, because when you feel you're completely different in some aspect in a way you cannot explain from the world around you, what else can you hope to do? I feel like if he has this intelligence and this knowledge, what else is he supposed to do with it? If he wasn't able to help, and
in a very Judo-Christian kind of way, it really feels throughout that he is someone that has eaten the apple of sin, that he knows the world of knowledge. He has everything, he knows what will happen, but he cannot do anything about it, so all he can do is exist as sin.
Yeah, and I feel probably on some level maybe he thinks of himself as like a bit of a coward because he thinks like he's never decided anything for himself, and that he's in turn pushed the responsibility for his presence in the world onto everybody else. But I feel like we don't really know his exact past, but everything about him points to me, and like with everything, how would he have thought to do anything else? And like, he's not a coward.
I really like to.
He's really not a coward because like, sorry, he's not a coward because
no, yeah, you keep going.
He literally nearly caused the end of humanity, and despite it all, he pushed forward and he kept trying to help, even as the entire world hated him and called him the devil. Which I just that's loaded, especially in his case, because I feel like he has a lot of like religious symbolism.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure we all saw the very big thread by Shmuel. Shout out to Shmuel.
Godspeed. Shmuel.
That was delving into how Asuka is the perfect mishmash, a combination of both Shinto Buddhism and Rosencrantz Christianity. Which is more of an alchemical Christianity. And it's really reflective in his design as well, where he's wearing the Shinto priest robes, but he's also got like the somewhat Christianity Pope robes the white robes on top. And the top ones were worn by the top priests of the Rosencrantz order, which of course is also his namesake.
Yes.
And I believe the flowers in his eye relate to that as well, but I'm not entirely positive what the symbolism behind it is, so forgive me with that.
Like there's all that. What I was leading up to is that the bravery and force-it will that it takes to, never, like, even as the entire world turns against you and you never felt like you had a place, even still deciding that you don't want to, he's never wanted anything but to help. That is what he's always wanted. And he says he's never made a decision for himself, but honestly, I think if there's even just one thing he's decided for himself, it's to be, like, kind at his core despite everything, which he's a very strong person in a way that I don't think he realizes.
Yeah, I mean, throughout his entire story he was regarded as a devil or like just the evil guy, but like you'll notice that even at the end of his story, all he really wanted to do was return his friends Frederick and Arya, and even if they're now sole bad guy and Jacko, they're still his friends, and he still managed to return them back to some sense of who they were. And like you'll even see that Sol wants to go to the moon to see Asuka. I don't think they're enemies anymore. They've come to terms, and Asuka's tried to repent. You do that for somebody you don't care about. You don't do that for somebody you don't care about. That in a way was Asuka's trying to repent, because he returned things to how they used to be and said,
as much as
I won't do anymore, I won't ruin it again.
It feels to me like Asuka is constantly in a confessional of his own making, but also he does not want the forgiveness of anyone except himself. And even when he gets his own forgiveness, he still can't accept that, because he keeps going in circles and circles of like, is what I did okay? Is what I did wrong? Am I even allowed to exist and get off scot-free?
Yes.
Am I even scot-free? Am I worthy of this pain? Am I not worthy of this pain? He feels like someone that is constantly just circling himself in
the circle?
I'm sorry. I couldn't. Something I wanted to loop back to. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say that in his song as well, it mentions that it's as if a divine seeker arises. Like, the way he says as if, but not it is. It's like he is the divine seeker, and that's how some people might see him. But he doesn't see himself as one. And
his song is so interesting too because of how it shifts from third person to first person, where it's like he is speaking from the perspective of the world, and his entire character arc is about looking from the perspective of the world and then shifting that to his own perspective, as Sol has gone his entire life, because he only ever makes decisions for other people instead of actually seeing what they want and seeing what would make them happy. Him defying Arya's wishes to just be with her loved ones until she dies, and other things like that.
Looking at some of the lines in his song, they're just so heavy, like, innocents lied to just to spare them. Like, those are things that he feels that he's done and that he shouldn't have done, but he had to do.
And to your point too, AJ, I really like that perspective shift from third to first, because I think it's just representative of this arc in general, where he's a character that I think is also largely defined by denying his own individuality and personhood, that he's kind of stumbling as a victim of circumstance into this position of martyr, or like the nexus of evil in the world. And then I feel like in kind of like it's the closest example I could think of, so don't get too annoyed, but it's like Lelouch Code Geass almost, where it's like if I have to be the villain to motivate the people that I care about to continue existing in this world, if like that's the role ordained for me by fate, I'll take it and I'll work with aplomb, but I'm still going to try to be a good person, even though I don't think I deserve it. Like maybe this is a divine punishment, because that's the only justification for how badly things have gone. But I like that towards the end we get him coming back into first person and saying like, well, you know what, maybe if Soul has been able to etch out a niche for himself in this world and find that there is love, and that he still believes in me as an individual, that I actually am worthy of love and of being regarded that way, and that I'm not this horrible monster that I see myself as. I'm not just numbers on a screen somewhere in the backyard.
I really love the arcade mode, because it really feels like Double Kreutz like trying to get that across to him, because on some level he knows it, but he doesn't see it.
Yeah.
I don't think. Like, I just generally have a lot of thoughts about the arcade mode and the way that Double Kreutz speaks to Asuka, and just the way all of it. Like, I could go on, and I will. I will, actually.
You will.
So I figured a good way to direct conversation, because there's a lot of things going on with Asuka, is that we could talk about his relationships to each of the individual characters that he meets. And I guess for starters, it would be good to talk about, how does Asuka feel about Soul, that guy, Frederick Bolsaro, since the start?
They are gay lovers!
I want to think of another part of the song, because in his song it says, "Did the sun ever defy fate?" and then, "Do you recognize me?" I think the sun, in a way, could be Sol, like Sol as in sun.
Yeah.
Like, he's asking if Sol ever strayed from his path, and if he still recognizes Asuka.
You know what, this reminds me too, in Overture, when he sees Soul again for the first time in 200 years, the first thing he says with the Valentine Crisis is, "Oh, I'm so glad you remembered me. I know you hate me, but that's okay. At least you're still thinking of only me." Which, first of all, that's fucking gay as hell. Second of all, it's like, he doesn't feel like he is worthy of any other kind of emotion except hatred. And like, that is the only way he will exist in someone else's mind.
I think it's a bit past that, even. It's not necessarily that he thinks he can only be hated. At a certain point, Asuka appreciates the hatred, because
the hatred is
Soul
what
still
kept Soul
hating
running after
Soul
him.
still hating him still means that Soul's in his life. Soul's still thinking about him.
Yes, he literally says that he would rather be hated than remembered.
He says that, you know, where he's like, he thought if Soul hated him, he could keep this connection with him, which
he would rather
is why he keeps up this whole Batman persona. He continues to play the villain, he continues to do all these things because, for one, he wants to make sure that, like, Soul is always constantly, like, still in his life, and two, he does it because... Shit, I already lost my train of thought, hold on. I was... Give me a moment.
Oh, good.
No, take your time.
Yeah, I lost it. I was saying something and my brain just died just there.
That's okay.
That's alright.
I'll get that.
If anyone else has... Well, we're talking about Soul, Overture, how he feels.
But yeah, like, despite the fact that Soul hates him, like, with all of his veering, Soul has no good opinion towards that man. Or Asuka, towards Overture, or towards until Exert. But even with that, he still appreciates the value that comes with that hate, because admittedly there is a timeline out there where Soul didn't become the Flame of Corruption, you know, like being the prototype gear didn't help with saving justice, or not saving justice, but killing justice for the first time, or whatever it may be. Like, despite the fact that all of these horrid things came from Asuka's actions, he still
I remembered what
keep
I was
moving and proceeds to enjoy.
Saying about this, but with the other reason why Asuka keeps this up, I feel I was talking about it with some other people the other day, but I feel like it's apt to describe everything, like the spiraling domino effect of all of his actions, like a sunk cost fallacy. Like he's already deep into all this shit he's done that
he can
only keep going at it, because after all, like, what would be the point of, you know, keeping Arya cryo-frozen? What would be the reason for, you know, reviving Soul with the flame of corruption? What would be the reason for all of this? You know, he can't stop here. He has to keep going, and it just keeps progressing. And I want to actually ask a question: is Guilty Gear Begin canon?
Yes.
I read through
Guilty Gear Begin is canon.
Yes.
All right. So
and because and it needs to be canon because it's what explains that Asuka was doing all this in coalition. Sorry, is that the right word? I don't know. With the U.S. military and everything that happened to Soul.
He was essentially being manipulated by them. And there was a line that kind of stuck out to me that I screenshotted, but I can read it out. But
you can send it in chat too. I'll put it.
Yeah, because let me find the right quote.
I really liked Guilty Gear Begin. I read it. It's really good.
Oh, it's a wonderful novel. I really, really liked it. I kept screenshotting it like every second of it. So shout out Soul Rad Guy for completing that, by
massive
the way.
props.
Great dude.
Huge respect.
Fuck. Oh my god. His projectile fucks me up. I really hate too that it completely annihilates Anji's spin because it's a projectile.
Yeah, it's a bit unfair for her.
For Asuka, he's everything he was doing in regards to putting the seeds in both his friends, like it was a gamble, and in his mind, he thinks that, you know, he can wait this out and he can avoid the worst case scenario. But the way I see it is like he's always kind of thinking that if he does this, he can avoid a worser scenario, while also kind of being unaware that it's already gotten to that point and it's just kind of evolving each time he goes further. Like he goes further thinking he can avoid any more, should I say, tragedy, or is that the word? He keeps going, thinking that if he turns Soul into
avoid
gear, he puts Arya into cryosleep, thinking, you know, in the future, eventually something can change if they're still alive, and then he goes further.
It really shows this.
He always thinks that there's a better scenario in the future as long as they're alive, and that's why he goes to such lengths as, like, you know, pretending that, you know, Arya was a test subject even in the story to get her, you know, give her a pass from the military, because they even mentioned in the story that they don't recognize this experiment. Like he was trying to keep her alive, and he just keeps going with it.
I just want to say super quick, I really like that his solution to my best friend is dying, I don't know what to do, is that he thinks as a scientist, oh, well, she can't die as long as I keep her alive forever. He doesn't think about consequences or anything. He thinks purely in science, logic, and reason. And what he thinks is, okay, so I'll make it so Soul lives forever, and we can put her in cryosleep. This makes complete logical sense, and he doesn't think about the emotions behind it, where it's like, okay, you're denying her her last rights, like what she wants.
I feel like, well, yeah, that's part of it, but I feel like that this whole decision was also kind of hasty, because as well in the story. And I think he also knew that it was either she dies by her illness, or the military coming in.
Yeah, it's
they were gonna kill them. It was gonna
pressure
be
under
either or.
these
And
awful circumstances.
Maybe I can save her by doing this instead.
I think I just realized too that this is what connects him and Soul too in terms of ideology, because both of them react to the same news of this person that I love deeply more than anyone else that has understood me since the moment I met them and has made me feel like a person. They're dying. They're leaving. What do I do about it? Both of them have the exact same response of, I'm going to stop whatever is doing this to her, even if it's fundamentally impossible. And it's why both of them have sinned. It's why both of them are completely guilty.
Yes, and
they have denied their human desires by trying to reject the wishes and loves of another.
And that's why I think Jacko, I've seen people dislike how the direction that they went with Jacko, which I guess that's fair, but personally to me, I feel like a lot of the series, to the point, is trying to prevent a death that happened 200 years ago.
Yeah. I feel similarly about Jacko and Striver. I think a lot of people give her more shit than I think it's worth, because I think she is pretty well written. Even though a lot of people just think, oh, she just depends on Soul, and oh, she has no sense of self. I think the fact that she struggles with defining what she is past a trauma that she went through is, really cool.
Yeah.
Another thing of note is, when Ari was dying, it was Soul that wanted to put her in cryosleep, and it was Asuka that wanted to make her live forever as Justice. Ari was the only one who said that she didn't want to, and she just wanted to spend her last moments with Soul. And so, now that Jacko's got Arya as part of her, it makes sense that Arya doesn't want to come through as the main, personality.
Yeah,
because she's just happy that she's able to see Soul still, but she wants Jacko to live as a person still.
Mm-hmm. And she made her decision.
And I think I just realized too, this is how reflected in how he treats Ino. When he finds Ino, he doesn't... I don't know, I think I need to jump this off of you guys because I want to see what you think, but he tries to save Ino by fixing her and making her live as a human being. Not making her ascend to godhood like his master does, which the old Asuka probably would have let her ascend to godhood. I think this is him, trying to learn and try to ground her, be like, no, you are a person of value. I will, allow you the blessing of life, despite everything.
Yeah.
Which is something she rejects wholly because she wants human desire to feel something, despite and just define what logic and reason are, in the same way that Asuka sins in the beginning with trying to define what the world should look like. That is what Ino's sin later becomes.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I never really thought about it that way, but I like that interpretation. I think, talking more about his relationship with Frederick, and also I'm talking a little bit with his relationship with Arya, I feel like I've worded this before better in one of my many info dumps to my friends, but the way I look at it is I feel like a major point in Guilty Gear, or concept in Guilty Gear, is the idea of finding a place for yourself in the world, and how that place is so often made of with other people. I think for him, his decision to I feel like they were his home in a sense, and
they absolutely were. From what we understand of Asuka's past, he didn't have one. His past was he met Happy Chaos, who was the original at the time. He learned the secrets of the world, and then that was it. He went to college and was like, okay, well, I should become a scientist, so I should stop the universal will. Or we don't even know when he met the original. It could have been after all this, but let's just assume that.
I've been kind of trying to pinpoint with a few people the whole timeline of when he would have met the original up till now, and it kind of also involves Chaos. I just want to say right now, a lot of people think that Chaos's first appearance in the backyard is what he looked like in the Zerd arcade intro, but there's a lot of reason to believe that that doesn't really make sense. That is not his first go into the backyard. And I don't know if I'm derailing the whole conversation here by getting into this, but I don't know if you guys really want to hear how I put this together.
I lost what I was gonna say anyways, because maybe you should. Unless anyone remembers what I was gonna say, because I don't.
What? Sorry.
I was following. I couldn't tell you where you were going next.
Yeah. Damn it. Oh well.
Okay.
I guess let's go into chaos lore.
Sorry. All right. So the whole thing where when they would have met, I've been trying to pinpoint this with a few people because, as it stands, what we know between both of them in the GG world, it says that Chaos was born in the late 20th century, and that should be anywhere from the years 1970 to 1999. While for Asuka, it just says he was born in the 20th century, but when he went to college and such, he should be at least a little younger than Chaos.
Yeah.
So both of them, they were supposed to be child prodigies, essentially. But the only reason why, Chaos has an edge over him is because he discovered the backyard, and he discovered magic early on in his life. When he was in the backyard, he made the EW, Universal World, and then, after that backfired, he tried to warn everyone that, what would happen, which would later become the Dawn of Revival, which happened in 1999. And it is said that there were 5 people who became his disciples that heeded his warnings, and Asuka was one of them. So therefore, they had to
the rest
have
for the conclave, right?
Yeah. So therefore, Asuka had to have met him before the Dawn of Revival, since he became his disciple. He was one of his disciples that heeded his warnings. Now.
So you would say as a child, then?
I don't think. I don't think Asuka was born from anywhere in 1990 to I mean, unless you want to say that he was anywhere from 1 to 9 years old before seeing the Dawn of Revival. I just don't.
Well, it could make sense because Asuka was a prodigy in college. He was the one that figured out gear cells, and he was the one that led that research with Vince. So I think it would make complete sense if he met him at a really young age. Because as Asuka says in Strive too, everyone has pushed on their wants and desires onto him. He has never chosen anything for himself, including being a scientist,
I understand
including being the devil.
I understand
so I
that
think
part. It's just
him being introduced to science and this from a younger age from the original, I think, would be really cool.
Mm-hmm. I'm just not sure. I know he was prodigy, but I'm not. Hold on, I have notes on this. I'm trying to pull them up right now.
He was it's Vince that was his teacher, right? He was part of a biological study. That was what they were doing before the Gear project. And it said that Asuka was so good at it that Vince basically said that he could be put in charge, and then basically retired and left Asuka in charge of the Gear project after that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
No. Now I remember what. It's not that Asuka probably wasn't younger back then. It's that I think the original probably wasn't actually that much older back then. Going by the timeline of events, if we are.
So you're seeing it as they are 2 teens that discovered something rather than a master and a child. Although I don't think that works because Asuka only ever refers to him as the master. And I see master as fundamentally older.
Well, yeah, but that's also because he is the one who discovered magic. This is the thing he is teaching all the rest of them, and plus he was a child prodigy too. So
Also, considering they're both basically immortal at this point, perhaps knowledge is how they determine age in a weird way,
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Chaos has more of that magical knowledge that the rest of them didn't, which is why he's the master and Asuka is the student in these scenarios. Both of them were child prodigies, so and they were both born in late 20th
In any
century.
case,
So
I don't know if this is exactly relevant to the conversation, because now I think we're getting too deep into, like, timeline stuff and not really analysis. So I guess I'll just leave off and say, like, hey, they met in the past, and that's what happened.
That's true.
they met in yeah, it's just I wanted to get that out of the way because I feel like that also has to do with why, you know, he was the one who got the Tome of Origin, and why he was entrusted that instead of the rest, and also why. Alright, I'm trying to put it together. I'm really bad at words. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's alright.
No,
If someone else wants to speak or bring up a point.
Yeah, I think. Oh no, sorry, Sophie.
No worries.
I think my point is that they had similar ideals, like the reasoning between Chaos creating the UW. He had good intention, but of course, like that backfired on him. And I think, you know, he went in to go stop that, and I feel like that's kind of similar to how, you know, Asuka also had good intentions with the gear power research. He wanted, like, to stop wars and all of that, but that also backfires on him, and it results in, well, a lot of shit happening in the lore.
A lot of stuff backfires on him.
A
It's
lot
like
of
a reoccurring thing.
Both of them
But
had
I
good
think
intentions, it backfires, and now here we are.
If you mind, I feel like you've taken up a lot of time speaking for
I'm
a little
sorry,
bit, so
I'm
I was just
sorry.
wondering if other people could. No, it's not, nothing to apologize for. You're just really
It's
like, into
interesting.
Asuka. I just
really
want others to bring up their thoughts too for a little bit.
I think it's interesting looking at how other characters who meet Asuka, especially in Exhard, like, think of him, especially like between those who don't meet him and those who do meet him. Especially Axel. When Axel goes and meets him, he talks a lot about how he isn't actually that threatening, and Asuka even like offers him sweets and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
He knows,
and
like,
then-
maybe
and
he
then-
should be scarier.
And then you see everyone else, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, it's Asuka! It's that man! He's terrifying! He's evil!" And then he's there offering Axel like tea and sweets, and Axel's terrified but also confused. And he just kind of runs away. But afterwards, he's like, "He wasn't actually that bad."
Yeah, and you know, even
like
says,
Axel's the neutral character. Like, he's not on anyone's side really, so
yeah,
like he kind of gets it.
and I think it's really funny how Eno is like, maybe you should try being a little scarier.
Yeah. Everyone who meets Asuka either says he's not that scary or tells him that he should try and be a bit scarier considering everyone sees him as a devil.
I need to bring up really quick. Raven, Eno, Jacko, Soul. It doesn't. Anji. Asuka has fumbled so many bad. Every single one of these characters I've mentioned has had like romantic interest in Asuka, with maybe exception of Soul, but I digress. All of them have expressed. They're all very sexual people. They all look to Asuka. They're like, I want him, and every time he fumbles it so fucking hard.
He's so socially awkward.
I
Like,
don't
I
feel like he's the
to
kind of
this
person
day-
that would
to this day, how he
actually.
fumbled
Like,
the Raven
I
bag
can
that
relate
bad.
how. I can relate to how like the entire time he's doing stuff wrong, and he's like, why is stuff going so badly? But then eventually he's just kind of like, maybe I'm the problem, and he then just steps away and like. He almost like cuts out communication because he's scared of doing something wrong again.
Yeah.
But then after he cuts out communication, people realize that actually he wasn't like that bad and that he was just misunderstood. And then you got Sol going back to see him again, and like his dialogue and his drive is everyone being like, "Oh, actually, I don't hate you."
Yeah. To that point too, I just wanted to circle back to a few things. So with regards to what Kit was saying about Asuka and HC's relationship, they definitely experienced something like super similar with the turns of Justice and Ariel respectively, but the responses that distinguish them from each other, right? So HC, upon seeing all of this fall apart, just kind of fully immerses himself in the world of the backyard. He allows that distance between himself and humanity, like his own humanity, to expand into infinity to the point where he's unable to appreciate like the world as anything but entertainment. And it's easy to see why you might think that way, because, you know, you spend enough time in the backyard, you see, okay, yeah, literally everything is just a predetermined string of random number generations. But Asuka, through his time with Soul and his time with the people around him, who he also helps to kind of achieve that sense of actualization, comes to realize that there's something more essential and unique and powerful that manifests through immersing yourself in the world as it exists right now. Like, not letting your pragmatism consume you and what you know about the secret goings on of the world, but really seeing like the human element and how much that can lift you up in a way and be like, oh yeah, people aren't just these numbers. It's what happens when you're in them that makes all the difference, and that gives something a real meaningful soul.
Also, with how close Asuka is to Happy Chaos, you'd think he'd see Asuka as like someone who would be a threat to like seeing him as who he is. But like, he's not really against Asuka. He's not like, oh, you know too much. He's just like an old friend.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no oh, you know too much, oh, you know too much. Like,
he calls him a little rascal at one point.
It's just, I'm your teacher. Do you remember who I am?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and like even when
that the way they meet again, and this might sound a bit weird, but it kind of feels like when you see an old childhood friend and now suddenly they're really right wing, and it's like, oh, this guy's not cool anymore. Actually,
like I love their fight as well, because like at first Happy Chaos is losing, but then here's that scene in like where he has like a little mind thing going on, and then he's just like, oh yeah, I am kind of a god. And then just kind of wins against Asuka, and then he's like, oh yeah. But like for a moment, he's not trying to kill Asuka. He's not got anything against him. He doesn't want to destroy him. He's just having fun.
Yeah, he's just kind of having fun with it. I don't know.
He's just being a silly guy.
That's all. He is always just being a silly guy.
He's
even
just
if
a
that
little
silly guy means terrorism, but you know it's fine. He got a little silly, Your Honor. Got a little silly.
Funny bit.
He got a little bit silly. He only launched a few nukes.
It's okay.
It's only a couple nukes and threatened people, and he shot that Chinese guy, and he
tried to make other people.
And he mind controlled everyone.
He only killed one guy. Like, come on.
He only killed one.
The apartment building doesn't count because Axel was there.
And know what's funny? He can look at Asuka and be like, come on, we've all killed a guy before, right? And it's like,
we've all killed
Asuka
a few
kind of
guys.
has.
Yeah, Asuka kind of blew up Japan. Which, like, we haven't talked about yet, which...
Yeah, we have not talked about Japan.
We have not talked about the,
There's so much to
the big crater.
The fact that Asuka R. Kreutz is responsible for war crimes, and not just war crimes, but he has replicated the exact war crimes from World War II to a much greater extent, the greatest war crime known to man, and he has completely obliterated the nation of Japan and flung the world into a war that resulted in 6 billion people dying.
I mean, it's another moment of where... It's another moment where he thought too much of statistics and like what he should do in the moment that would technically be the best, rather than like the emotions of people and like how other people would feel about it. Because technically, yes, with all of the gears that Justice was controlling within Japan, blowing up Japan probably did solve a lot of the problems with like the war. I feel like the war might have been lost by humanity if Asuka didn't blow up Japan, because like it said that a lot of the gears that existed before the Crusades were in Japan, and that's why Asuka blew it up.
If I can throw
but still, like, you know, yeah.
If I could throw a quick criticism towards Asuka, it's that I really wish he had more culpability with the justice thing, and that it wasn't just that Aerials was doing. It was Aerials that was gonna blow up the entire world unless he did this. I genuinely wish it was his own mistake and Justice realized the weapon that she was becoming and had will of her own, and that Asuka genuinely made a mistake, because I feel like it cheapens his character a bit to say, oh yeah, some greater being then took the wheel, and if Asuka didn't make the necessary decision to trolley problem this and kill 6 billion or kill 8 billion, then I don't know. But it's still engaging the fact that how much this affects him and how much he feels complete guilt over this moment, but I do feel like the narrative is cheapened a bit by Daisuke cheaping out and saying, oh yeah, Aerials was going to do this no matter
I
what.
disagree personally, but
Do you have reasons for that? Because I think that'd be cool to talk about.
I'm not really sure.
I mean, in a way, I don't think he knew Ariel's was there at the beginning, did he?
No.
Because from his perspective, it was just justice is malfunctioning. This is my mistake. I must repent. I must do something to fix it.
Well, he had something because one of the scientists at the time was saying that they're breaching into the world again. This is exactly the same as the 2000s, where the universal will is coming into our world, and we know that Asuka was aware of the whole universal will problem, which is why he was working on the Gear project to begin with. So yeah, I think it's that he did know that the universal will was trying to manifest with injustice, and he was like, okay, I gotta do a lesser of two evils here, even if everyone hates me for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I feel like it doesn't necessarily cheapen his character to do that because, like, the way he views it, it was his mistake.
He didn't account for the universal will ever trying to manifest within Ariel's, so he is still responsible for the 6 billion dead.
I think having ways to like look at what Asuka did and say it's not technically his fault that he had to do that is kind of important for his character, because he's not really a villain. He's just someone who doesn't think about the emotions of others and makes mistakes. Put up to 1,000, but
I would love to segue here actually, because I feel like this is a bit of a topic that we haven't talked on much more. But as much as Asuka's story is about the emotional connection and how his lack of it at times can kind of get in the way of what he wants, is also very much so a story about control and the fact that he all the time consistently tries to grab onto and grip onto multiple forms of control through what he does for Sol and Arya, through even what he does to Japan when justice is taking over. Consistently trying to grab control and figure out, do what's best, what he necessarily thinks is best for humanity. And because of that, while he may or may not be right in the moment or whatever it may be, it will continue to spiral out of the control that he once lusted for.
So because it's still Asuka once again trying to determine what is more moral than the entire world, it is his decisions that he's making, and the world is being impacted for this. It is still his sin, and he's still trying to take control of everything. The same mistakes he made in his youth 50 years prior when he was in college, and the same mistake he'll make 200 years later. Whenever he tries to take control of something, it always goes foul.
I think in a way the story is trying to say that no one's really a villain. It's just that the world around them, that's out of their control, can cause people to look like a villain. Because even the main evil, the main villain, is literally called the universal will, which is just fate in a way. So
I think it's really important too that Asuka's moniker, that man, is a nondescript thing. He removes culpability. He doesn't remove culpability himself, but the entire world has no idea what he is. And when you consider this in a translation sense, that he's literally being referred to the man, as in I'm gonna stick it to the man. Asuka is meant to represent the world in control in a sense. He is the man that we are sticking it to. That is what Sol is against.
Yeah.
Sol doesn't even honor his longtime rival, his closest friend and ally, his possible lover. He doesn't even honor him the request of remembering him or calling him by his name for 200 years, because he has taken that government position. He has decided, as soon as someone decides to have power over another person and strip their will for any decision and make decisions for them, whether good or bad, you are no longer deemed as a person that you have committed a sin and you need to learn otherwise. Guilty Gear is all about putting decisions back into the into the perspective of the person being impacted, victims specifically. It's why Asuka brings up the child laborers that the entire world has forgotten. In Guilty Gear, they mentioned too that all of Africa is currently going through countless problems that have just never been mentioned ever. That in China, that people are being subjugated, that just there's no mention ever because it's not relevant to the Euro standards. All of America is in turmoil from Chip and his how he was orphaned. No one is bringing mention to this fact, and it's something that Asuka brings up. and it's like he wants to bring attention to, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it's also like another line from the song, does meaning have a meaning? Like, that is just such a line of just like everything, like what is meaning, what is worth our attention, like what facts should we accept and which ones should be ignored, which ones are the most important, which ones need our attention, and
like there's no answer to
like,
that, really. There's no one
yeah,
answer.
there's no answer to it, but like it's still something you have to think about, because you have to choose an answer, and that's what Asuka tries to do, but he always gets it wrong, even though technically it's the right thing, morally he always has done the wrong thing, and that's what made him a villain, and that's what made him like trying to do the right thing and just telling people the facts and letting other people solve the problems with him being information, and like yeah.
So we've talked a lot about Soul and how Asuka feels about Soul. I want to bring up one last moment in respect to this, and it's that the fact that Asuka at the end of Exord and for Strive looks to Soul and says, I want to fight you. And this is something that Soul acknowledges. This is what allows Soul to finally say, I will now call you by your name. You are now a person to me. And I think it's that Asuka is finally showing conviction, his own conviction for once. No longer is he the control and trying to control other people's will. He is now trying to exert his own for his own sake. And I think that's what allows Soul to finally deem him a person that is worthy of being acknowledged at all.
Also,
and
talking about Will.
What?
Oh, really quickly. Talking about Will, it's also kind of metaphorical how that's at the exact same time that the universal will has been captured and stopped. Like, Asuka finally has his own will back, and it's right as the universal will has been captured and stopped.
That's a really cute comparison, actually. Thank you for bringing it up. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that, yeah.
And I, of course, I want to talk about Strive's ending too, where he gives Soul the choice. I will take away everything that you think has deemed you a monster. I will take away this flame of corruption. I won't make it so that you feel like you are going down your own path and that is hurting people anymore. And if you want to keep being the monster that you think you are and keep wanting to hurt others, I will let you keep that hurt. But if you don't want it, I will take it from you. And I will make sure that you are happy. And I think it's the fact too that Asuka says, if you do wish to keep being hurt, kill me. I want you to kill me. Because I don't want to witness that kind of pain.
Oh, I never thought about it that way.
I think
and I think it's also too that even in all this, it's kind of painted in a very villainous way, where it's just, this is just once again Asuka failing to communicate. Because he's trying to say like, oh, I want to help my friend, but he says it in a very, very dramatic way, where it's like, oh, you either kill me or I kill you. Like, come on.
I think it's really through Soul that we get exposed to a lot of the hypocrisy that Asuka is kind of plagued by, where the reason that, like we're saying here, Soul is willing to acknowledge him finally, like he abandons his hatred and that hesitance that he has, is because, Asuka is accepting his conviction as his own conviction. He's calling a spade and not abdicating his responsibility to, like, the notion of science where it's like, oh, I'm just operating logically. It's like, no, the thing that you've been doing the whole time and that people should continue to do, I think, at least in Daisuke's vision, is operate by their own selfish beliefs and live for themselves, because that's the number one thing you can always count on. It's not a bad thing to live for yourself. It's an important thing to do, and the moment you stop doing it, that's when you become a quote-unquote villain. But I think it's another really interesting point, kind of in effect of what you were saying, and I think to a degree what we were all sort of getting at, is Soul is another person, alongside a lot of the other characters that Asuka has relationships with, that have this kind of like complicated relationship with their own humanity, right? But it's either through Asuka himself directly or the circumstances he creates with them that they come to realize, like, oh, I am a human being. And yet Asuka himself remains really hesitant to acknowledge that about himself. Like, he'll tell Ino, who is basically like a construct of the backyard, like, oh no, you're an individual human being with a life and a soul, like, you need to go out there and live your life. He'll tell Raven, a man who's been alive for hundreds of thousands of years and has completely lost all sense of purpose in self, like, oh no, there's absolutely a role for someone like you in the world. You need to go out there and be a storyteller, because stories are what bring human beings together and enlighten them. Like, you matter so much. and he'll tell Jacko, who views herself as like a complete mistake and a broken thing that's only stopping other people from getting what they want, that like, no, your life specifically as Jacko, not just as an imperfect copy of Arya, the person who he also holds in such high regard, like he's one of the people directly affected by the fact that she's not a perfect copy. Like, no, you as Jacko deserve to exist and you should exist. But like every time he's confronted by someone else about that fact, he's like, oh no, I'm just that man. I'm a figure floating by the wayside.
Yeah,
like,
he does not think. He doesn't think he has a place in the world, and he doesn't think he deserves to have one.
Yeah. I'll never forget how taken aback he was at the fact that, like, he and Raven called each other friends, and how much that impacted him and how much that impacted Raven, where it's like, yeah, Asuka hasn't had what he would call a friend since college. And I'm sure if you asked Asuka when he was in college, he would not even say that Sol and Arya were his friends. I feel like he would be the kind of person who would be like, oh, these are my closest colleagues, we talk all the time, we meet outside of this. But we are partners, but like, I don't think he ever grants himself the personal respect of deeming other people his friend. So to hear that for the first time from Raven, who genuinely has no one else, and that he genuinely has this attachment to, it means so much. It is world building. Having friends and genuinely connecting to others is your world, and that is your will.
Yeah. If I could say one more thing, I'm not entirely sure how to word this, but to me, I think, like, specifically with the God, sorry, again, I'm not entirely certain how to word this. I just want to get it out before I forget or we move on.
Yeah.
But, like, I do think, like, I'm sorry, can we come back to this? Okay, thank you. Yeah, 'cause I just can't figure out the words right now, but...
So, on that note, I would say we've pretty adequately covered how Asuka feels about Sol. But I would like to move on now to, how does Asuka feel about Arya? This is the person he's doing it all for. This is the girl that taught him how to smile and how to feel and how to be a person. And he's
Don't say that, you're gonna make me emotional.
And this is the person he commits all of his crimes for, and the first person he ever hurts. I think more than Sol, and more than Frederick, Arya is the person he hurts first by going against her wishes. And I'd like to bring up your thoughts on all of this, guys.
Oh god, yeah, I think a lot about when Arya says to Frederick, I think, she says that, like, at one point she thought of that if she never let herself get close to anybody, that she couldn't get hurt. Like, she says that, doesn't she, at Exard?
Could you say that one more time? I missed it.
She says something along the lines of, she felt like as long as she never let anybody get close to her, that she couldn't get hurt.
Yeah.
I think, like, what makes Arya, Frederick, and Asuka, like, such an important, like, trio, like, set of characters to me, like, not on just a narrative level, but, like, on an emotional, personal level for me, is because they're all people that have, like, they are all outsiders in some way, but they're able to find each other and find a place in the world within each other's company, and that's just something that's so meaningful to me.
Arya is someone that has had an illness since her childhood. She never made friends because of it. Sol, we don't know, but Sol is someone that stands offish. It's by his own personal choice that he doesn't connect to anyone because he feels like no one is at his level. Where Sol is very much dead set, I'm going to listen to Queen, I'm gonna do the shit I care about, I don't care about your rules, fuck your rules, and I'll just live by my own standards. Like, we have Asuka telling him, even your lab partners hate you, what's up with that? So I think the fact that Sol was able to Frederick, I keep messing it up, was able to sit down and genuinely have people to connect to was probably the first time in his life that he's had that.
Yes,
and Asuka, like we've talked about, we don't know much about his past, but we do know he is someone that has delved into research since the day he was born, and that he has had the burden of knowledge his entire life of bad things that will happen. So I don't think he's ever connected to anyone outside of the original. So he feels like he has no friends, someone that is at his level both in age and in intellect. So when the three of them met in college, I wish it was on paper, they genuinely are friends. They genuinely get together closer than anyone I've seen in my life. Like, I didn't personally believe of the idea of a QPP or a queer platonic pal. I don't know what the actual name of it is.
Yeah.
But I think they are that for each other. I think there's a sexuality and gender thing for each other.
Maybe,
it's like, oh yeah,
maybe.
we all accept each other for the people that we are, and we have made a family, and this nothing else in the world matters more than this.
Yeah, it's friendship is something that's very, very important to me. That is like one of my biggest values. So for that is, I think that is definitely why that they are something I think about so much, is just because that sort of idea, the like, right, I remember what I was gonna say earlier. So, like I said, Asuka doesn't think that he has a place in the world, especially, like, after everything he did. Like, during Strive, like, he removed himself from the world entirely, more or less. Like, he...
For 200 years.
Yeah, but... And then literally removing himself from Earth. Because he doesn't think doesn't have a place to be there. And I don't think he realizes that, like, even after everything, like, he does have a place, he does have a home, and they're building a fucking rocket ship to come get him.
That is the part that makes me cry the most. He feels like that home that he had is gone forever. He doesn't even realize they are doing everything they can to reconnect with him.
They want him back in their life, and... I'm crazy. I'm sorry. I'm like,
no, you're so
crazy.
Hating someone for 200 years. This man is the one that made me kill my wife, that has transformed my body, that has transformed my wife's body, that I hate from the core of my being. And then all of a sudden he remembers the good times he's had with him and wants him back more than anything else, and wants to be there and see him smile and to smile with him.
Yes, like, okay, so...
Oh, fuck.
Sorry, can I just bring up one thing? Okay, so there's that scene in Strive near the end where Jacko is about to sacrifice herself to stop Ino, and Soul says something about, like, do you think I'd just give up after a one-sided breakup? Because she is literally removing herself from his world, the worlds of everybody, because she thinks she doesn't have a place because she can't be Arya. What is Asuka doing?
Asuka is standing off to the side and he's freaking the fuck out. Like, I think that's the first time we've really seen him express emotion, is when he shouts, "No, Jacko, no!" And he's like close to losing it.
I meant, like, what is Asuka doing, as in, like, what is he doing by, you know, leaving and going to the moon? And he doesn't, because he doesn't think he has a place in the world, and you know, Frederick and Jacko are making the rocket ship to come get him. He's, again, not giving up after a one-sided breakup, just because Asuka thinks that he doesn't have a place with him anymore, and that he doesn't have the right to, that's not gonna change the fact that, no, they care about him, and that's not up for debate.
I think this would be a really good time to mention, too, the fact that only is it that we find out at the end of Strive that the song Frieza is about Asuka.
Yes!
And that he is literally playing that song in Tirnanog, sadly to himself.
Yeah.
He's lamenting everything that happened.
What if I was insane? What if I was
here.
insane? What if I was insane? What if I was insane? What then? I don't have to imagine, because I am.
Like, why is that piece of information real, and why do I have the... I feel like Asuka carrying that knowledge, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I think seeing that piano in Tirnanog fucking destroyed me, because of course everyone has cried to Frieza, everyone knew this, and I think, like, it's equally in Soul's POV as it is in Asuka's POV.
Yes.
But the fact that it's him sitting there like, I wish I had you back because you made me happy, I loved you guys so much, like, oh my fucking god!
Old man divorce, old man get back together. Now, I'm
So
begging
true.
you.
Bring back old man.
I'm waiting for the fucking After Story 2, where they come up and they grab his stupid gay boy ass. They drag him back down there.
For the longest time, I have been like, I know what the last after story is for Strive is going to be, and it's going to be that Sol and Jacko go up to the moon to invite Asuka to their wedding or something.
Oh,
like, I
that
don't
would be
deserve
so
this,
cute. Oh man.
Asuka goes, without me, and then he puts on his veil.
Yeah. Or someone
and
you
then he
forgot
puts
to
on his
ask.
cat ears.
But I just wanted to loop back really quick to the starting question of Asuka's relationship with Arya specifically, and say I think Arya is especially significant for Asuka for obviously all the reasons that we just spoke about, but because, you know, she's the first person where, like, they kind of are exactly that for each other, right? They're showing the other person that they can kind of drop their guard for the very first time in their life and actually let someone in without being hurt, because like you said, Arya said that, and I'm certain that is something that Asuka believed, either subconsciously or consciously, but like, you know, no need to get too attached to people. I'm just here to do my job, and it's like, oh wait, oh my god, I actually like care about people more than anything in the world.
Like, you're a person. You're a
go
person too. And like, okay, so something I realized when I was like a while back, like a couple weeks ago actually, so a while back but also pretty recently, I noticed something in the Exard script. Asuka mentions the universal will, like, adapting, like, because, like, Sol and Asuka were, like, the main thing standing in the universal will's way, whether it be willingly on Sol's part, or whether it be, like, unknowingly on Sol's part, because he didn't know about it, I don't think, and then Asuka, who, of course, does know about it, that, like, the universal will, learning their values, and learning those to undermine them, and it made me realize, oh, Valentine looks like Arya on purpose.
Yeah. Like, I think it says something that Asuka looked at Arya and noticed that she has the heart of humanity and was like, I'm going to make it so that her values and her love transcends time completely. She will be the Earth. And I think it says something, too, that the Valentines he creates are like Arya because he thinks Arya is someone that can fix people, her values and her love. That's what he uses to fix fix Eno, and that's what he uses to, you know, fix Jacko.
I never thought about it that way.
Oh, shit. Oh my god, this character's so fucking hard.
Like,
So,
it was just
so
a
little-
it was just a really huge whoa moment for me when I realized that, like, oh, because, like, what do Sol and Asuka, what do they both care about, like, above anything else? It's Arya. Of course Valentine would look like Arya on purpose if the universal will is specifically learning their values to undermine them and hurt them. Like, it makes perfect sense. And it just made me feel like, because then there's that scene in Overture where Sol's like, did you make Valentine? Is this your doing? And it's like, no, not only was it not his doing, it's that it was made to hurt him too.
Everything in this world is made to hurt Asuka, clearly.
Literally, though.
But yeah, I agree.
For real.
I want to bring up, too, two things. First, what do you guys think is the significance behind Asuka putting a ball and chain around Jacko's ankle? And it, like...
I never thought about it, really. I kind of just was like, cool, design element, honestly.
Because he is, like, restricting her.
I guess so.
Yeah, like, the idea of Jacko being a prison for Arya, I guess in Asuka's mind, like, makes sense. I suppose just because... It would make sense if Arya wasn't the person that she was. Because she sees it and she's like, oh my god, I get to see my two hubbies again, instead of being like, oh, this is a vessel for me.
Yeah. I think a very astute observation. I think, like you're saying, it's kind of him, like, reflecting on what happened with Justice and being like, oh, this isn't really something that nice, I really am creating a prison, but then, yeah, kind of like you're saying, so she's just like, oh, I'm just here to have a good time. I get to be a fun girl again.
That's what I want to bring up, too, right? Like, what is Asuka's reaction to Justice being a thing? Like, when Arya's in Justice and they're setting it up for her to turn on, he's like, hey, Arya, everything's gonna be okay, please don't freak out, just do everything that we went over. Like, he's very gentle with her. And then I think I want to know, like, the exact moment of horror and realization that, oh god, this isn't her anymore, and now she's freaking out, and now she's a giant monster, and I made this happen to her. Like, holy shit.
The horrors are never ending with this man.
Oh, so the horrors are never ending?
I see now, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Horrors beyond my comprehension. Well, horrors within my comprehension, actually.
Horrors within my
Horrors so
comprehension,
horribly
but
within my
oh my god.
Okay. So moving a little bit past the horrors, I'd like to know what people think Sin would think of Asuka, considering he only has one eye.
You must have had a lot of babies!
Jacko is his baby.
You have a baby coming out of your eye right now!
What are you talking about?
That reminds me too, the fact that Soul is like, hey Sin, get a good look at Asuka. That right there is a real man. And it's this guy that looks like a girl, and also is a cat.
Sin, look at that guy. This dude is generous as hell.
And drinks beer exclusively and is a dragon. That's what a real man looks like.
He's so base for that, to be honest. He's so base.
Guilty Gear has always been subversive like that, and I think it's something that genuinely gives it so much heart.
This is the future that liberals want.
It's very...
True! I'm liberal.
Like, Guilty Gear is something that is so infused, like, not with just the soundtrack, but with the spirit of rock and metal as, like, a subversion of things. And, like, not just with it being, like, not just with, like, the characters and the way that they subvert it, but I'd say, like, just by being a fighting game that has this massive focus on plot that I don't think I've seen that before in many other fighting games, honestly.
The closest you have is Tekken, which goes for like a kind of action movie premise where it's like, oh, this is cycles of generational violence, but I think the lore of Tekken is so sloppy, and I think it's something they clearly stopped giving a shit about after a certain point. And I think another example would probably be like Blaze Blue, but that's from the same company and from a person that was deeply inspired by Daisuke. And I think it just says so much that, like, Daisuke chose to tell this story through a fighting game where people are clashing ideals and values and are showing off their personality, like, in a way that can't be shown other ways.
It's genuinely so cool. Like, narratively, Guilty Gear is just, like, one of the most fascinating things to me. Like, it is what made me discover an interest in, like, I've started to be able to appreciate other art now because of Guilty Gear. Because it made me, like, realize, oh my god,
it's
like, so many things can be vehicles for emotion and story and ideals and humanity. Like, Guilty Gear is so much about humanity. Its ideals, its flaws, its love, everything about it. And, like, I think that's why Asuka makes, like, a perfect villain, is that, like, he's not evil, he just fucked up horrendously. It's like, love for humanity is something that I kind of adopted, like, years ago as a bit of a coping mechanism for things I won't get into, of course, but so seeing this, like, it being, like, not only validated, but being, like, shown in somebody that, like, its ideals resonate with me so much.
Every single character is written like they are the protagonist of their own story, and every single character shows a different person that has struggled completely with life, lost all hope, and then this is how they found a way to keep going, and it's by being themselves, it's by being hobbies, it's by connecting to others, and it's just really beautiful.
And yeah, Guilty Gear is so good. I love Guilty Gear. Did you know that? Fun fact, guys. I'm on the Guilty Gear podcast, but did you know I'm a fan of Guilty Gear? Any fans of Guilty Gear in the chat?
Oh no, I've never heard of that one. That sounds stupid. Why would a fucking game have a story?
The name is Guilty Gear.
I don't know what this gear is so guilty about. Grow the fuck up.
Like, it does, like, bother me sometimes when people look at, like, the first Guilty Gear and are like, I hate the direction that they took with it, because, like, you're saying you don't, like, not liking it is one thing, but then saying that you think it's a bad story, like, obviously everybody is entitled to their own opinions about things, etc.
Yeah.
But I feel like if it just stood that way forever, it wouldn't have communicated anything particularly meaningful. Like, it has to evolve.
The way Missing Link concludes is that every character ends it miserable. They have whatever beliefs they've had crumbling before them, and they have no path left in life. And it's very bleak. And I don't think I think Daisuke never even wanted that to be the entire focal point of the series. And I think maybe he made that when he was like a teen, or sorry, I think he was like 22 when he made Guilty Gear 1. And I think it's like a philosophy that he has grown past, and that's representative in his work. Like, I don't know if you've heard his interviews, but he is someone that has a 4-year-old daughter now, and he is someone that constantly says things like, I make video games because I want to save the world. I want to be a superhero through,
yes,
like, and it's like, I can feel that kind of earnestness from him.
I admire Daisuke, like, so much. Like, I don't think, I obviously don't know him personally, but just through the way that I've seen him speak about things and the ideals he communicates, and like you said, I never really took notice of it, but you're absolutely right about like that kind of chronicling his like evolution in ideals and beliefs of like, which is something that resonates with me very, very strongly. Like,
I think it's that. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, yeah, I just
that.
No, go on.
I think it's that Guilty Gear's messages change so frequently because Daisuke himself is changing.
Yes,
everyone talks about, oh, there's plot points he forgot. Oh, I wish this character got explained a little more. But I think it's that Daisuke writes as he feels. When he feels sad, when he feels hopeful, he interprets that through a character and how they are. And I think that's why like Asuka is off screen so much, because he is the responsible of all evil in the world, and I feel like Daisuke was finally like, I think hope deserves to exist too, and that's why he brings out these redemptive aspects of Asuka in later games. He didn't want it to be a brooding, like, horrible person anymore.
Another thing that's really worth noting is that Daisuke said that a lot of the characters he makes in Guilty Gear are based off his own personality, so...
Yeah, I found it really interesting that he said that Sin was representative of his own innocence, and it's like, I can kind of see that now. Like, Sin is obviously not a child, but he is a younger, very young adult. And I can feel that, like, all these silly questions he asks and how he tries to speak from the heart. Like, that's probably how Daisuke views an innocent part of his life, and that's really cool.
Like, it does feel like Guilty Gear is just something that is full of so much heart in a way that I just, like, it's made me, like, genuinely interested in trying to tell stories again, when that's not something, like, I have not felt any sort of desire to tell my own story with my own characters, with my own things in so long. And like, actually, like, now I'm on a project with some of my friends and we're creating a story together, and Guilty Gear is like a massive inspiration for me, like, for being able to interpret the characters. Like you said, it's like, I'd love the idea of, like, I think he says something about Guilty Gear being about a celebration of humanity, and it's just, it's beautiful. I don't know what to say, man. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Speaking of beauty, I think now would be a good time to bring up Asuka's very special relationship that he has with Raven. A
So
person
true.
who is doomed with immortality, who is probably the most depressed person in the entire cast by far, and how he was able to transform him and make him happy and give him purpose even when he lost everything. And I think that Asuka's mini story with Raven is my favorite writing in the entire series. It's something that whenever I watch it, I like don't even speak. I just have my mouth kind of agape, and I'm like, holy shit.
I need
Raven's
to rewatch
cool.
that so bad. It's been a while. I
What were
remember.
you guys saying?
Sorry, go on.
No, I didn't have anything to say. I just couldn't hear someone that was speaking. You can go.
Okay, I was just gonna say, like, I need to rewatch that because it's been a while, and I remember the first time I watched it. The first time I watched Exard, both the Exard games, we watched it all in one sitting, so it was like 14 hours, like an entire night. me and my boyfriend.
I cannot imagine sitting through all of Exort like that.
I watched it all on a plane
I could
ride,
feel
so
my,
I
I
basically
could
did the
feel
same
my
thing.
like, I could feel like my brain
shit.
chemistry being altered in real time.
You were never
This
the
is
same.
what indoctrination
I was never the
looks like.
same.
Oh no, I don't think the spectate thing is working.
Uh-oh.
Spectate will
Oh.
go to the next match. Since they're already in the match. I don't think it's-
Yeah,
okay.
it doesn't work when you're like in rematches.
Oh, we can
It's weird.
leave after this set, so we can but when it comes, the thing is that when it comes to Daisuke's running and a lot of people being like missing link is so pessimistic. It doesn't have the hope of the later series or the entries in the series. I think that's very. Asuka is the perfect way to necessarily represent that. Just because I don't think for a single moment Daisuke was like, I'm in the 5th game in this franchise. I'm going to redeem this guy finally. Like this is what he's finally gonna have his moment. Like
I think Guilty Gear is kind of like a big D&D session where it's like, but like an unplanned one where it's like, I'm gonna get together with my friends and we're gonna do this. Here's the inciting incident, and let's just keep going from here. But it's like a D&D story where he's in the final hour now, and he's just making himself and his friends cry over and over because he's added new elements, added new elements, and it's like he doesn't even remember everything that's going on. He's just built a little universe for these characters to play around in, and it's just he wants to tell a story to his friends. I imagine.
Yeah, and like
that's the kind of. It feels like a collaborative work where it's like he thinks of new things to keep adding.
Like, sure, maybe to some it would come across as like unpolished, but to me, like, I find it like it makes me enjoy it more. It feels like beautiful and genuine and like real.
I think
It's very polished with like how many characters there are and like how much there is going on.
Like
It's
it is very
polished with,
impressive, just like how much is going on and how much is coherent with.
There's
so
not really
long,
any
like-
plot holes. As well,
I
which
think
is
Ramlethal's theme says it best when it's like this series is heart and heart through and through.
Yes!
Like, maybe not everything makes sense.
I love
Maybe
Ram
we
Lethal.
don't have
Oh my
a-
god, I love Ram Lethal. This isn't about her, but I just want to say I love Ram Lethal.
Ram
Like
Lethal.
maybe we don't have like the facts and knowledge. Maybe we don't have like what the exact definition of a magical foci is. Oh, we don't know where Izuna went. Oh, Happy Chaos is kind of a late addition, but it doesn't matter because it's how those things make you feel when you see them. And I think that considering how the series was crafted, the amount that he does remember and the plot points that he does pull together are really impactful and cool.
Okay, so I remember like reading an interview that like said that when he went up to Arxis and was like, I want to make a fighting game, and they were like, sure, and he was like, wait, what? Like, he didn't expect to be given that. So, the fact that it was like a bit of a surprise.
That the fighting game, the only thing he thought going into it, besides the fact that I believe he said that he has been drawing Soul as like an OC of his since he was in college, just sketching into his sketchbooks. But outside of that, the only thing motivating him to make this game is that he wanted something cooler than Street Fighter. Like, he was in the arcades and he saw these fighting games and he was captivated by them, but he's like, yeah, but none of these guys are cool. They're wearing like robes.
None of these guys are like anime and
They don't have the
for each
drip
other.
enough. Also, I love Guilty Gear's fashion. Like, as a character designer,
The
I
fashion
adore
is so
Guilty Gear.
good.
Can we talk about Asuka's shoes?
Yes!
Oh my fucking god, we gotta talk about these fucking shoes.
Can I tell you? Okay, so one of my friends, shout out to her, hi Necro if you're listening. I showed her Asuka, and like immediately she was like, "What the hell is up with his shoes?" And every time I bring him up, she mentions his shoes, and
I like his shoes.
Whenever I look at Asuka, all I can think of are the high definition Among Us shoes, where all the Among Us are posing and like, yeah.
One of my favorite things she's ever said is, "Be not afraid, basketball squeak."
I think his shoes are cool.
I think they're cool too, but also yeah, it's funny.
But also, you can tell that he's friends with Anji because they both have terrible shoes.
They absolutely have horrible, like, what is going on here?
He probably thinks
Like,
they're so
Anji's
cool, and
shoes
he's
are
right,
just-
but also he's a nerd.
Like, Asuka's shoes are cool. They don't look weird when you combine it with him though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
but
it
it's in a
doesn't
way
fit
that I
the-
love, actually. Like, yeah.
It's so interesting too that it's an aspect they decided to emphasize with Asuka. Like the shoes are big, the shoes are flashy, and they're on this like guy in priest robes. And I think to me that's kind of symbolic of like Asuka is meant to evoke both the modern and the old.
Yeah.
He's wearing these old traditional robes, but he's also looking towards the future and is on the pulse of what's happening now. So he's wearing these modern shoes. But also, he's so socially unaware that he doesn't realize that these two concepts don't exactly mesh together.
Yeah. I like that Asuka's, like, honestly, like, he's just kind of a dork. And I say that affectionately.
He is.
Kinda.
Like, he still looks really cool, even though, like, some of his stuff, like, doesn't mix.
Yeah.
He still looks so cool, though.
Like, I think that's the reason for the cat ears and for the, like, a huge eye that he has and the wings and, like, everything. And it's that just he is a mishmash of everything because you can either see it in, like, a puberty sense where he's trying to figure himself out now, or it's in the sense that he just fundamentally does not understand other people.
I think the cat ears were just a silly prank on Sol. Like, after 100 years of being this mysterious guy, he's like, cat girl.
He's like, I can be evil, I'm a cat girl, T.
I can be anime cat girl.
It's so interesting on a meta level that I think the intended reason for the cat ears is that, like, we're supposed to laugh. Like, we're supposed to see him and immediately laugh, like, oh, this was the big threat?
Yeah, I think it was like to add on to the whole he's not that threatening thing.
Exactly,
Like, what Axel was
exactly, I
saying, he's
agree.
not that scary. And then they get to the end and it's like, yeah, he's got cat ears, he's not scary.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's just a soft, cute little kitty. He's nothing.
He's just a silly little guy.
Speaking on his character design, I do really love, like, as we learn more and more about Asuka, like, going from his Overture design to his Exarch design and then to his Stride design, we see more of him and he becomes, like, more human, almost. Cause, like, he's wearing, like, he looks like an umbrella, like, it's a cool outfit, but also you look like an umbrella. And then, you know, Exarch with the cat ears, of course. And then Strive where, like, yeah, he's still got some weird thing going on with, like, the wing eye, but also, like, he's very noticeably human.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, on a narrative level, like, as I'm, like, I do character design, so that sort of thing is just really, really cool. Like,
One
having
thing that makes him
tie
feel
into the... Yeah,
One thing that makes him feel really human is, like, the fact that he has zero stamina. Like, every time you see him fight, he is just exhausted. He finishes his fight and his win animation is him keeling over on his knees. And I
think it's that so much of Asuka is, like, I don't know if this is the right term for it, but, like, hypocritical. Like, so much of him is a lie. He's got this huge cloak, he's got this huge staff, and he comes off as the most intimidating sorcerer of all time.
Well, I mean...
But he's also, he can't run a mile. Like, he runs, like, 2 seconds and he goes...
And also it maxes how powerful he is, because one of his win quotes is saying that it would be much easier to destroy someone than fight them. Like, that's just how powerful it is.
Yeah, like,
it would be easier for him to wipe them out of existence.
I almost destroyed a star.
Yeah, that's another one. I think that's
It would be easier for him to wipe you out of existence and kill you instantly than it is to go easy on you.
Yeah, and it also ties into him being bad at communicating because, like, dude, you sound like you blow people up on the daily when you say that.
Like, also another thing about his moveset is he doesn't use any physical attacks. The only physical attack he uses is he hits you with a little cape swish.
Yeah, and like when
he hits you with his cape, he doesn't have a single kick attack because he doesn't want to ruin his nice shoes.
And when he's like doing the whole ultimatum, like either let me remove the flame of corruption or kill me, he doesn't like lift Soul up by himself. He uses like in the like behind him you can like see a magic triangle thing. Like he does not have he does not have the physical like strength to do these things. And first of all, just like me for real. And second of all, like it's just it's just another aspect of his character that. Like,
also one thing that made me love his personality as well is when you're fighting him, a lot of his lines are just like, sorry, I'm not that strong. Meanwhile, he's just casting the most powerful spells known to humanity. And
like, he's a nervous wreck. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Like, I'm not that good.
He's got really really pale skin too, like he's anemic or something. Like, oh god, if he steps outside, like a stranger
This guy wore a cape.
and he's gonna die.
Like, okay.
This guy wore a cape for 200 years. He has not seen the sun.
he literally has a line, I was looking through his voice lines a while back, he has a line that's something like, I swear I get sick whenever I leave the clean room, and a clean room is like a space in a lab that's like, it basically like filters out things like dust and stuff like that, usually to protect medical equipment for like technology or medical stuff. So the fact that whenever he feels sick whenever he steps out of the clean room, like, oh, you good, bro?
Yeah.
He's just like me. He's just like me.
He is so weak outside of magic and knowledge. Like,
disabled king.
That is the evil guy that has been like terrorizing the story this entire time. And it's like, if someone had like bothered to like tap him on the shoulder, he might have disintegrated there and then.
Yeah. And something I want to bring up too, in the contrast of both how he appears and how he actually is that when he fights you, it is all one big lie. He's got this entire huge staff with the Tome of Origins, the key to the entire of the universe, the secrets of all mankind. And that's not the real Tome of Origins. He's lying. He's doing all the spells himself because he is the book now. He's absorbed it. He's just pretending to have this big book out. Like, that's so fucking interesting.
It's pretty
To be fair, the book does look very cool.
It does look very cool.
It looks so cool.
Like definitely saw the book and was like, I have to play this guy.
I love that one of his moves is he just makes the book huge and he just hits you with it.
Overhead!
That was really funny. I'd like to say like one more
so
thing.
funny.
Like Asuka's physical weakness, like as a disabled person, it made me really happy to see like a character in a fighting game that is like very physically incapable, actually.
Yeah.
And like just like, because I could already relate to him a lot, like just like with his feeling of disconnection.
Like, there's a name of a specific disorder where it's like you get tired out really quickly and
chronic fatigue maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, like
even his defense is like buffed up by magic. If you don't have mana, he becomes the weakest character in the game.
Yeah, like you can.
But when he has magic, he's like the most defensive.
Yeah,
like,
and
more than Potemkin and then less than Shib.
I wanted to say
so interesting.
That it does feel kind of like, again, on him feeling like the world was always like ill-suited him for him in some way, like him, like, you know, not just in the social aspect but also like maybe on the physical disability aspect, like if you're choosing to view him through a disabled lens. I think that
it's also interesting that he hasn't like been able to just fix it with magic as well.
Yeah.
Like, he changes his body. That's how he like becomes immortal. He like replenishes his body, but he hasn't like fixed that.
I really wanted to bring this up too, and it's the fact that this might be a bit weird to say, but Asuka R. Kreutz is a trans character. He literally is someone that has body dysphoria in a sense, and he constantly changes his body. Like this is his 5th body that he has been through, that he is biologically created. Like the last one had cat ears, the last one had this and that. Like he is someone that constantly changes himself for himself. And I think it's really important too that the way his face looks, like he could have given himself any hair, he could have made himself any height or anything, but he's physically weak and he looks a certain way with the same eyes and the same hair and all this because he wants to look the same way he did when he saw Soul last. Like he wants them to still be recognizable in a
he
way.
wants like
and that brings it back to the line in this song, do you still recognize me?
He's a very sentimental person, I think. Like
I think he's someone where it's like if you lend him something like a pencil, he'll remember that until the day he dies because you acknowledged him, you helped him out.
Yeah,
you gave him purpose even for such a minuscule moment. Like,
and then he'll bring you 10 pencils.
He's
very romantic in that sense.
He's so full of love, despite being so strange and off-putting at times and poor communication of that, but he really is, like, all the Guilty Gear characters in some sense, and just the entire series it's very full of love, which is something I really enjoy about the series in particular.
Then I also wanted to bring up, since we talked about a lot of characters, I don't know if we had anything more to say about Ino and how he feels about Ino. before I move on to another one?
I don't have much to say about Ino. I do think that it's real as fuck of her to be like, I'm gonna take over the world because you only wanted to fuck with me so that I didn't. Like,
yeah,
like that,
her
once
immediate
again,
reaction,
that inaction that Asuka takes, and then the way that he tries to take control once again, and then loses it because it's just like, I see through your bullshit now, and proceeds to launch the events of Strive is really cool. But.
Yeah, and like even though like when Jacko like explains what Ito's deal is to her immediately being like, so he didn't need me around, he was just keeping an eye on me, he was just using me, and Jack was like, no, he can be like a little mean sometimes, but he's not the kind of person to use people, and Ito's still being like, no, fuck this guy.
I think it's that for Ino, this is finally something where she found that she didn't even realize it herself that this was somewhere where she belonged. Like, she's been looking for so long for a way to go back to Will, for a way to exist as herself. She keeps going through time and not finding anything for her, and she's seeing futures that she can't solve.
Ino is so
And she didn't even realize how attached she started to become. And so when she found out from Jacko that, oh, Asuka had a purpose for me. He didn't want me around. He had a purpose for me. And that, sorry, I got it wrong. It's that he had no purpose for me. He just wanted me around.
Yeah.
It feels like, oh, so I am literally meaningless. You were just trying to keep a dangerous thing on a leash. You don't care about
Even though, like, I do
person.
feel like he did genuinely, like, he gets sad when, like, he sees that Ino is, like, in Strive, he gets kind of, like, he seems a little sad when he sees that Ino is...
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's because Ino is the one that's in the wrong here. She doesn't realize that other people have complex emotions, and that's why she ends up being the main villain, because she neglects the fact that Asuka did express love and care for her.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, too, that the way I just described all this makes her sound like an evil ex-girlfriend, or like, she just went through a toxic relationship, and it was like, oh yeah, no, he didn't give a fuck about me, he always left me on red, and I'm leaving, and now he got all of his friends to get me back.
That has never been how I thought about it, but that is hilarious. I love that.
I think, like I was kind of mentioning before, with Ino especially, like, a lot of Asuka's relationships are the one Avengers meme of, like, I lead others to a treasure I cannot possess, and I feel like that's so apparent with somebody like Ino, where, she's constantly grappling with what her place is in the world, and the fact that that was, like, the whole reason that she's always doing her wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey bullshit is just to, like, be like, okay, let me find out something, or do something that'll, like, entertain me and bring out that human element. And then Asuka was standing there the whole time beside her as, like, the one person who definitively believed no matter what, no, you're a human being, you're an individual, and you deserve love. Like, for all of his entourage that he had in Exerd basically saying the same thing. But I think it's especially poignant for Ino, who is like, I would say a little bit like Ariel's in a way, where she's this manifestation of the universe itself.
Yes,
and
yes, absolutely.
Complex way that makes her feel, where she's like, oh my god, like, am I some sort of mistake? I'm just a robot, and I feel like that's something that Asuka is uniquely positioned to help her reconcile.
Yeah,
the fact that you can be afraid about that at all.
Yeah, God, Ito is so cool. I love Ito. He's so cool.
I know. She's my main.
Hell yeah.
Ito main!
But yeah, especially if you ascribe to, like, the allegory of autism, I feel like, the robotic thing is something that you hear thrown around a lot. So I feel like for Asuka to hear or think something like that specifically, be like, oh my god, this is someone who needs my help, like, let me get in there and show them, like, no, I've been through that too, it's not the case, you're a human being.
Like, Asuka probably, like, even though I don't think, like, he has more people that, like, I don't know if they would call him friends, and I don't know if he would call them friends, but I don't know how to describe a lot of the relationships he has other than friendships. Because, like, that is something that people do for their friends, or at least people that they care about. Like, he's not as alone as he thinks he is, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he and Ino both, I think, have these facades that are, like, beginning to consume them, and it's blinding them to the fact that, like, they have people in the world who care about them, and that they are worthy of care.
Kreutz literally makes a point, is like, I remember, like, okay, so, I remember when I first went through the arcade mode, or went through a video of the arcade mode, and seeing Kreutz say, it was something along the lines of, like, as long as one person, like, keep walking, as long as one person out there cares about you, it is worth it to keep them happy. And Asuka, like, responding with, like, I did not make you to be, like, some living epitaph, and Kreutz saying, I want to believe that. He's saying, I want to believe that you don't want to die.
Yeah.
And I'm crazy. I'm crazy.
Like, elements.
Crazy? I was crazy once.
They put me in a yard, a backyard.
A backyard. They put me in a box with no windows.
But yeah, this goes really nicely into the conversation I was going to lead into, and it's like, finally, how does Asuka feel about himself? And I guess in this case, Doppelkreutz. What is Asuka's relationship to Doppelkreutz?
Oh boy. I have thoughts on this.
I think Tiernanog smells. That's it.
Damn, alright.
Shut up, Dad. I want to go back to Earth. Oh, you got me locked up on Tiernanog? Let me go do this battle Turing test method. Whatever. I think it's so incredible that Asuka was like, finally, a clone! Now I can figure out what's wrong with me. And the clone's just like, you're depressed, you're miserable, I don't like you, fix yourself. And
I disagree. I think Doppelkreutz likes Asuka. Like, it literally says, like, in Doppelkreutz's list of values, that one of them is Asuka. He's, like, harsh with him, but I don't think he dislikes him, necessarily. Honestly, this kind of harsh sort of acceptance, especially from somebody that, like, knows the events that he's, like, been through and has it, like, from his perspective, somewhat, like, the moral aspect is removed, which is a substantial part of it, but still, like, knowing what happened, like, that, I feel like that is something that he kind of needs, because he's stubborn enough that I don't think he just seems like a stubborn person, and he seems very convinced of himself being, like, I think a lot about the fact where that one part where Doppelkreutz says to Asuka, like, you are not the monster that you think you are, and Asuka's immediate response is, are you kidding me?
I
like,
think,
he is like, you're full of shit.
It would make it easier for Asuka if there was an antagonistic relationship between himself and Doppelkreutz, but I think it really is very meaningful that there is not, that they're kind of out there thinking through things together, and I think it speaks a lot to the progression of his character, that he can finally look at himself and say, like, this is not a monster. And that he could have, like you're saying, Doppelkreutz in his corner, not, like, preventing him from being able to recede into that persona again, and, like, stopping him, like, nope, you're a guy, you need to be loved.
Yeah, like, again, like, also the epitaph bit, where he says, I'd like to believe that that is why you must come home alive, and...
Like, oh my god.
Like, dude, oh my god, when his arcade mode dropped, I could not sleep for like 2 or 3 days because I just kept thinking about it. It made me insane.
You are not unlovable. You are not, like, even if the world hates you, you can still love yourself and you can still keep moving forward.
And, like,
in fact, the world doesn't hate you. I know there are people out there that do love you. If a single person loves you, then that is a reason to keep going.
Like, I think, like, and like, again, with the idea of like, people being your place in the world, like, your place in the world being other people, like, and Asuka kind of thinking, at least to some degree, that he does not have one, or could not have one, or does not deserve one, certainly not with other people, at least, like, saying, come home alive, and then I mentioned earlier he does have a home and it's building a rocket ship to come get him, like, oh man, what if they were everything to me? What if they were everything to me? What then? What then?
How would you react?
Would you be mad? What if I was obsessed? What then?
I think it's really interesting too, the unique relationship that he has with Kreutz, where it's like in most things of media there would be that antagonism.
Yeah.
But they say in their rank 7 post-battle conversation where it's like, hey, the god for us is logic, reason, and science. And what Asuka thinks is that because they are both biologically the same, because they both look the same, and because they both feel the same, they are the same. Like, he has no antagonism and fully acknowledges that his clone is Asuka. Like, usually in a situation like this, your clone would take a different moniker, or, like, say his personhood is a different person, right? But the clone fully accepts that this is Asuka R. Kreutz. They both fully accept that this is Asuka R. Kreutz. They both fully see that this is one soul, this is him. Which I think is such an interesting interpretation of that kind of thing.
Like, it feels like they're both the same, and even then, like, they are separate to some extent, but then they're the same. Like, I say separate to some extent because I mentioned the, Kreutz mentions that he has no, he does not have a sense of morals. At all. Like, he does not.
He's, like, programmed slightly differently.
Yeah, it was an error
it's also that
was made. Also, he's a little chattier, but Asuka did that on purpose because he's a lonely motherfucker. And I love that Kreutz calls him out on that.
To admit this stuff about himself out loud.
Yeah, and like, I feel like a lot of things, like Kreutz specifically saying, like, I found these hobbies and I found this, like, he says that he wants to live. I feel like a lot of statements that could be made about, like, Kreutz and, like, the fact that he has, it's like, it shows us what Asuka could be like if he stopped obsessing over something that he can never have, which is atonement, because he doesn't think that he'll ever be able to like, redeem himself for what he's done, and yet he chases after it endlessly and just keeps going.
Like,
and so, like, yeah.
It's not that he's trying to obtain goodwill, but he's praying for the accumulation of goodwill. He's sitting there praying that atonement will come, but it's not something that will come. There's not going to be a set moment where every person on the planet Earth turns around and says, "Congratulations, Asuka R. Kreutz, you're free to go. We all forgive you. You have done your rights towards us, and you have saved us all. Thank you." That is not going to happen.
Yeah.
He is a human being, and the world is full of human beings who are all as messy and complicated as him.
Yeah.
And he's trapped himself in a loop of sorts.
Yes.
I wouldn't say necessarily as messy as him. I have not necessarily blown up Japan, but
that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. Like,
it is true. Like, the fact that Kreutz can sit there and be like, yeah, I'm indulging in the luxuries of life, the parts of life that people actually enjoy, and you can and should do the same. And then on top of that, both aligning with Asuka being like, yeah, I am a part of you. I am not maybe just as much Asuka R. Kreutz as you, but I am still Asuka R. Kreutz.
Yeah, there's no, like, any of them trying to claim themselves as the original one. They're both their own person.
Exactly.
Which I think is brought through in the merch as well. If you look at if you look at the merch, they both have their own merch. Which is a bit meta, a bit out of
brother.
Yeah, like, it is interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of want to see if they do, like, their own stuff at any point.
Yeah. Like, for the most part, I think it's just really important for Asuka to have, like, that figure in his life. Of like, because as many good influences as Asuka has in his life, he still never gets the fucking point of, like, you can be loved. No. Like him and his entire posse go through all of Exer being like, heart emoji, love you guys. Like, like will
like a little
always
clone of
remember that
himself
you
is
are
like
your own person, and then he gets back at the end of Exit is like, I'm turning myself in. I'm the worst motherfucker alive. Like, don't you dare ever let me say sorry to you, or I'll kill you. Like, it's the only
like a literal clone of himself is like, you're not hated, and he's like, but what if my clone is wrong?
Exactly.
What if my clone is lying to me?
Again, I think
It
that's
literally
that
takes-
even has something to do with his self-hatred. Like, I think that has to do with, like, because it's...
I think it says something, too, that
I think it's significant.
Viken and Anji were people that were directly affected by the results of his actions. Like, their entire nation is gone. And what is the result of this? Well, Anji sat down, talked with him, had a cup of tea, looked at him, and it was like, damn, this guy's hot, but also I recognize this person is a human. This is not, like, this is a guy that was trying his best and not forgive him, but understands, like, okay, I want to see what happened. And, like, doesn't hold him for the sins of his past, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And that's, like, someone that's directly affected by the things he's done.
Yeah, and I wanted to, like, I want to say, like, I feel like, Asuka's, like, kind of... Doppelkreutz is the one he needs to... I feel like the fact that it's a clone of him, it makes it harder for him to accept what he's saying and easier at the same time. Like, it's who he needs to hear. It's like one of the people, like, he needs to hear it most from. It, like, probably, if not the most from. But it's also, like, I feel like his self-hatred is a little bit what makes it harder for him to accept it.
The thing is that it's not even that. I don't even think it's just that it's who he needs it from. It's who he hasn't heard it from. Everyone at the end of Strive and Exert, or by the end of Strive and Exert for the most part, every person of relevance that isn't just like a nameless NPC, admittedly, like, I'm sorry all the people of Japan, I have to call you nameless NPCs now. Like, we can't, like, he's been apologized and has been forgiven for his actions. Like, Soul's forgiven, Arya's forgiven, like,
and I don't know if you realize those things, for one
moved past it and moved past his atonement, except him, enough so that he has to escape to the moon to go through like an Asuka Doppelkreutz training camp to figure out what the fuck is his problem.
I have some notes here written down, like, Doppelkreutz urges him to not keep chasing endlessly for, like, this goal that he knows on some level that he'll never be able to reach, because, like, atonement is something so vague, and he wants to make up for his misdeeds so much, like, even the slightest bit, but also at the same time, the way he's so dead set on existing for it, no matter how much good he does, it won't ever be enough to make him not hate himself. Nothing can undo what he's done. And what he needs to do is to stop trying to exist for redemption, stop trying to exist, like, for any purpose, and just let himself live. And we don't know, like, ton about his past, but everything that we do know, I genuinely think that's not something he's ever done before. Like,
yeah.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I really wanted to bring up this aspect, and it's that this is fully symbolized in his song, where the beginning is this droning out choir of, like, monotony and sorrowness that I feel like is really representative of how he feels like he's ruminating on his own problems. And then he goes through an entire character arc within the song where he asks questions, he answers questions, he's pitting his own emotions the same way he pits the weight of the world. Like, it feels like everything is on his shoulders. And after he cries out, like, do you recognize me? He figures out the gravity is the answer, and after all that, it goes back to the same droning choir. It repeats the same thing that was at the start of the song, because he is looping these questions on himself while he is in space. He realized, like, hey, all these questions I asked, all the meanings and things that I just came to, did any of that mean anything if I'm just back in the same situation I started in? I'm still on the moon. Every, like, hypothesis and thing I just thought of doesn't mean anything. No one's hearing this. This is just for me. So was there a point to me even singing this song? Which I think is such a unique question that is, like, in the song itself.
His song has so many meanings, and it's just like, it would take ages to go over all of them. There is one really good YouTube video, and it's this guy who does, like, philosophy of Guilty Gear music.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah, he did a really good analysis on Asuka's song. If anyone watching wants to go see that,
really
then
cool.
they definitely should.
I really want to ask you guys too, what do you think the gravity is? Like, after all these questions that Asuka asks, like, has the universe turned black? Did the sun ever defy fate? Every single question, even the ones in the chorus, outside of the chorus, he realizes the answer for all this is the gravity. And I'd really like to see what you guys' interpretations of the gravity is.
If I may begin.
Me to give you my cop-out answer?
Yes.
Because I don't think it's necessarily a cop-out, but I just think it's what is intended. But I feel like the gravity is meant to be humanity. Guilty Gear's like core theme is, for the most part, using your relationships and the things that are important to you, the things that you value yourself, and using that to hold you down, despite how many times you get knocked back
and like
down, you'll get back up because of the people in your life or the goals that you set or such on so forth.
I think
I understand.
And it's all over Guilty Gear. The easiest one I can think of, like off the top of my mind, is like Jam's restaurant being burnt down all the time.
Yeah, she had in her arcade mode, she brings up this exact concept where it's like, hey, no matter how many times you fall, you are going to sit back up. You're a human being. That's what you do as an animal. That's what you do as a person. So I want you to take that and turn it into motivation as well. When you fall down, you will rise up again.
Exactly. And I think in the same sense that Jam kind of is the kind of character to have that built in, Asuka was the kind to need to learn it. And that, in this sense, would be the gravity. Is like Asuka asking all these questions to himself all by himself on the moon, and he's realizing that the answer is the gravity, but he's on the fucking moon where humanity isn't. Like,
and the gravity is literally literal gravity is much lower on the moon. And
exactly,
in general.
Because him and his clone are the only person there.
He also has multiple of his moves which affect gravity. If you notice, like his staffs,
True.
all of them affect momentum, gravity, like either sucking or pushing or like rising or low. Just also gravity.
Yeah, and I think the gravity is. You made a point that it's about humanity, which I really, really like that. I also think, like, on a more specific sense, like, again, and full disclosure, this could just be my bias towards these kinds of themes in media, but, like, I do think it is also the people he knows that is what, like, his experience and his life and his thoughts and the people around him and the people that love him and people he loves is also what ties him to the world. It is what keeps him grounded in the rest of the world. But he's removed himself from that now. He needs to be brought back down.
Yeah.
It could be like the gravity is the entire weight of the world, and realizing like, hey, you don't have to focus on the entire weight of the world and everything that's happening. Just focus on the thing that is directly in front of you, the weight of something in your hand.
He needs to learn how to just live for the sake of living, I think.
Jay, I think you had an interpretation of what the gravity meant that I really liked. Do you remember what that was, or?
Oh, I'm drawing a blank, but I really liked what Soup was just saying. I feel like that's probably about what I was thinking, where it was, this is like a horrible, annoying thing for me to say, but it leans a little bit into like the JoJo interpretation of the meaning of gravity, where it's like, you know, fate or people will bring each other together.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, wow, now I actually understand what the fuck they were talking about there.
Yeah.
Because I read that, gravity. Like, I read the manga, like, years ago, and I'm not smart.
It all comes together.
Thank you, rollback.
Did we want to start wrapping things up soon, just because we're at 2 hours now?
Oh, we are?
Wow.
Holy shit, wow.
Yeah.
Asuka's been in the story for so long, we could talk about it for literally hours.
It's true.
I literally could keep going
aspects.
forever.
just one more thing I wanted to bring up, and it's his relationship to Happy Chaos. And it's like, everything that Asuka is, he is donned with the clothes of the man. Like, he is donned in priest robes, he is donned with the Catholic robes, he's wearing the iconography of animals, he's got the cats, he's got his eye of birds. And what does Happy Chaos have? Oh, he's just like a blue guy, like he looks completely alien. But he's also simple. He's a very simple guy in jeans. And that's it. And I think it shows like, oh, even I'm dressed this crazily, but this simple guy is the real problem here. Which I think is a very fun design dichotomy they make.
I would also like to point out that Happy Chaos, he has the black halo and he has the little horns, and it's just generally like very like imp or demon motifs, and he's referred to as the Messiah, while Asuka, who has these very like religious priestly motifs, like angelic kind of thing sort of going on, which honestly I think is part of why I love him, because I just love that shit. But anyway, and he's called the Devil. I think that's so cool. I think that's so cool.
So is it that Happy Chaos is then the false god, and Asuka is the true believer then? I'm not Christian at all. I'm just kind of saying vague terms I've heard before.
I'm not sure if that's not what I was going for. I was just saying that I think it's cool, but that is an interesting interpretation.
They are based, I think, off of there's like this story, like the Blue and Red Oni or something.
Oh yeah, I remember reading a comment about that.
Where one of them intentionally did evil stuff so the other one could become friends with the humans by pretending to stop the other from doing evil stuff, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And I think that's sort of what let Asuka become friends with everyone again and like no longer be the devil, was after Happy Chaos came along and like, you know, did all this evil stuff. Asuka was able to stop him, and that basically elevated him to a new level of maybe he's not so bad.
Yeah, cement him tangibly among the do-gooders of the Guilty Gear universe and show everybody for the first time that he was working with them all along. Because, like, it's not unique, too, for that instance. Like, he was putting things in order for Exerd. Like, every major conflict there, he was like, oh, let me set things up for Frederick so that he can, you know, clean things away, because like clearly he doesn't desire the end of the world like so many of these people are always trying to bring about. But this is the first time in Strive that we really like see him take a step forward and be like, hey, it was me. I want to help.
Yeah, like I do really find it interesting that there's just so much of the series is Soul spending like wanting to kill Asuka for the things that he's done, and the fact that he didn't actually understand the things he's done because he's never really communicated that, and just all these reasons, but also like him wanting that for so long while the entire time Asuka was on his side. Like that's a little funny. Like, bro, you were really hunting him down when he was just in the corner, like helping you out. It's a little funny. But it's also, like, actually very meaningful at the same time.
No, yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say, like, I think very human to... Like, sometimes we do have these antagonistic relationships with the people that we love. Like, everybody goes through a rough patch with somebody, be they, like, friend, family, or a romantic partner, where you're like, oh, they just have it in for me, when really it's sometimes you let the resentment blind you for what they actually feel. And it's like, oh, nobody really wants to be a monster at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes to have like that conversation.
That is very, very, very rare. Like that, yeah.
I also find it funny that, well, not funny, but I find it interesting that a lot of the stuff that is hard for Asuka comes naturally to Happy Chaos. Like Happy Chaos wants to play the villain and the hero at the same time. Like he mentions that in the next story he might even be the hero. Because he doesn't want the world to end, he just wants it to be interesting.
Yeah.
But Asuka's never had control over his own fate like that.
Yeah. I think there's another thing too, and it's the fact how much Happy Chaos understands conversation. Happy Chaos is purposely a very funny, witty, sarcastic character. And something you need to understand for sarcasm is what the intended message is supposed to be of sarcasm. You say sarcasm because you know how it's going to come out. He knows how to make people feel. He knows how to be he knows how to control situations, and he does everything in the name of a play or like how it will sound. He is someone that cares very much about how people react to things in the same way as Asuka, but Happy Chaos genuinely does understand what people are saying when they say it. Meanwhile, Asuka only ever acts in how he thinks people will say, and he struggles to communicate himself, and I think that's really fun.
Yeah, I like there is that little bit of interaction. I think of like the intro interaction with I'm not sure if it's one of those where it's different for Kreutz and there's a specific one for Asuka. I don't know like which of them it's for, if it's different for them, but I know it's with Happy Chaos where like oh no, it is for Asuka. It's not Kreutz because Happy Chaos says like, oh, got the quiet one today, and Asuka says, well, you never taught me how to talk. I love that he's kind of fucking sassy with him.
Yeah. Like, also, Asuka always, like, is trying to control people in a sense. He's always trying to do stuff his way and solve, the problems of the world that aren't truly his problems to solve in his own way that he decides. And then Happy Chaos just comes along, like, just going with the flow, but also able to control people perfectly however he wants with mind control. And it's sort of like...
I want you to do whatever you feel is natural to yourself. In fact, I want you to cause problems. I purposely want you to make this as messy as possible. I'm here I'm here for a little bit of drama, you know, just, don't mind me.
He's such a fascinating character, like, on a narrative level, just everything, really.
They're both, like, opposites of how they want to save the world. Asuka's trying to save the world by doing everything within his own control, whereas Happy Chaos is kind of like, I'm going with the flow, but, you know, I'll guide it.
And the thing is that Asuka also comes to understand Happy Chaos a little bit more towards the
he's like, I was about to bring that up. Like, I think I understand.
He says that he's sort of understanding how Happy Chaos feels sometimes and what he thinks. As much as it scares him, but like...
Asuka is so lonely. Asuka misses other people, and he understands, oh, my master, he does all these things because he wants reactions out of people. And I think I understand that just a little bit, even if it harms other people. I understand it. I understand
just
it
a teeny tiny bit.
Tiny little bit. And the fact that's the ending of his arcade mode, that is what he wants to emphasize the most. That's what Daisuke put an underline and a period over.
True.
And it's like, this is Asuka at his most vulnerable. That is Asuka admitting, I am lonely. I finally understand this.
Yeah. And again, like, Kreutz, like, he doesn't outright tell him that he's lonely, but he does when he calls out, it's like, oh yeah, you made me chattier because you wanted somebody to talk to. And he says something along the lines of, like, there's no use lying to me. Like, I know this. Because Asuka won't fucking admit that he's lonely, and I'm just like, can they get the rocket ship going faster? Can they, please?
I need more story.
I'm crazy. Crazy?
I was crazy once.
I was crazy once. And by once, I mean every goddamn second of my life when I'm thinking about him.
So, since we're closing up on the podcast, there's just one other thing I wanted to bring up.
Yeah?
And it's that the reason why Asuka chose a podcast, and I don't think it's a reason a lot of people realize, and it's that he specifically says the word too, radio. Well, throughout history, the way protests, the way things in life work, is that actually what a lot of great protesters in our time would get radio shows and just talk on them. Because the way you change life is not through radical change and standing in the streets, which obviously feels good and obviously impedes stuff, but the way you change things fundamentally is through talking to other people and getting them to understand. And throughout history, radio has been a way for ideologies to pass through, specifically things such as like more understanding of the racial movements in the 60s, understanding of the gay and LGBT movements of the 80s, 90s, the transmission of information so that you can understand directly from the victims themselves what is happening and how facts should be spread.
Yes.
And the reason for this is because throughout history, the radio is a cheap thing, and you turn it on, and then another person speaks to you, and it's something that most people own without even thinking about it, or at least it used to be before this huge technology, started to change. But we still have things like podcasts and things like radio, where this is how ideology changes. We've seen this, of course, in horrible ways with like things like what's it, Jordan Peterson or what, I don't know, all the weird fucking podcasts in the world where it's like, oh, men get their values from this. Or, you know, things such as social media where it's like, okay, now I understand that there are problems in the world because I've learned it from other people speaking about this. Radio historically has always been the guiding tool for social change, because if you can get the average person to listen to a problem and have an opinion on it, that is how you change things on a social level, like a daily level, not on the government level, but on a person-to-person level.
And
I think the fact that Asuka uses radio specifically, and that's his biggest dream, and he uses a podcast where he just says facts, just to get people aware so they can make their own decisions on these issues, is an incredible thing, and I really commend Daisuke for this final send-off to the series, being, I want you guys to be aware of problems at the very least.
Yeah, and I actually do think Daisuke specifically, I forget which interview he said it in, but if I remember correctly, he said at one point what he thinks will help people like humanity come closer to, I guess, world peace, is people understanding each other more.
What is happening in the corner over there?
I don't know.
oh, holy shit, we're ganging up on each other.
You guys having fun?
Guys, did you know that Asuka likes to cook using Rube Goldberg machines?
Yes.
That's really funny.
He does. He makes noodles with Rube Goldberg machines.
He's so funny.
So yeah, I really want to bring up that aspect of radio because I think it was a really cool thing for him to include. And I also think that Daisuke himself has been influenced by radio. Obviously, he's listened to metal and he's listened to rock from the 80s, and I think that's what introduced him to subcultures of punk, to LGBT subcultures, to other forms of subcultures, and exposing people to other ideas was probably his own way through radio. So Asuka being a symbol of that, I think is perfect.
Yeah.
And obviously we should continue to make jokes about it as well, that he's getting sponsored by Audible.
True.
And talking about radio, I have this theory that Daisuke actually really likes Queen.
Oh, what? No.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I think it's
crazy.
Crazy theory, but I think it's heavily influenced by
That's
Queen.
a bit of a stretch, I think.
I mean, it could be, but
Frederick Bolsara is my goat. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I guess we'll never know, huh?
We'll never know.
I do want to say one thing before we close out. If I don't say this at least once before we go, I will cry and scream. You can play as both the Asukas. You just have to select up.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, that's so cool. And one of them is the master of all sorcery, and the other one is praying for the accumulation of goodwill.
Exactly.
The other one's just not that good. The other one's just weak.
One is the message, and one is the guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. One is the power, I guess. You know, Asuka and his clone, they're like two fisticuffs that they're both hitting you with.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys for joining me today on this episode of Talk to Me About. I guess the final question is, do you find the defendant guilty? Do you forgive him?
He's guilty of being too cool.
I sentence him guilty. He will face out his trial by having wonderful gay sex with his lover Raven.
And Angie.
And Angie.
And Angie.
And Soul.
I sentence him to going and hanging out with Soul and Jacko and just getting cuddles or some shit. Because, oh my god. Lonely bitch. Lonely ass motherfucker.
I sentence him to finding at least one friend.
Please, God.
At least one.
Jay, do you have a sentence for him?
I think sentencing him as guilty is really just people not being able to forgive themselves. So I think he is not guilty because we've all made mistakes in our lives and we should be able to move past. And who hasn't done an oopsie like blow
pulls up glasses. I did not blow up Japan.
That was an oopsie. It was. He's just a girl having fun.
Can girls not have fun nowadays?
I haven't mentioned at all, but also before we close out, Asuka's autistic. Like,
Yes.
It's true.
he's such a good like representation.
He really
He
is.
remembers details. He's very particular about how he does things, how he presents, how he like speaks.
Yeah.
Absolutely fucking autistic.
Like
Yeah.
so many things just make me think of like, oh my god, me, so true.
Just like me for real. And that's why Asuka fans are all autistic, like almost all of us are. I don't hate
It's
that.
That's
true.
why Asuka fans are all autistic. Amen.
And all
Amen.
Asuka means ADHD probably.
Yeah.
God bless.
God
Thank
bless.
you guys for joining me today for this episode. I had a really good time.
Me too.
This is the longest I've ever talked in a long time, so...
It was almost
I'm
done.
glad that everybody had a good time. I had a blast myself.
It was wonderful.
But yeah,
I had to balance talking and trying to play Asuka at the same time.
Oh yeah, no,
so
like
much
my
respect
mental
for
state
that.
playing
That
this
sounds
character is
so good.
already really
My-
high.
I made him, but every single time I said something, I'd immediately start losing, and I was like,
That one neuron
just-
not working for
I
playing
just
is
slapped
like.
buttons.
Yeah.
But yeah, goodbye everyone, bye!
Bye.
Thanks so much again, everybody.